Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. The chairman of the board, Mr. David Reed, is here today. Hello, Mr. David Reed.
Good afternoon, sir.
Titans minicamp day 2. So I am not going to pretend like I went out there to minicamp today and that I was watching the plays and breaking it down. Because, again, you guys know me. So you guys know that when I go out there, I have a full breakdown, everything else. I'm not going to be one of these people. I saw a bunch of podcasts yesterday. I saw Kaharski got all upset. There were a bunch of podcasts that were out there about breaking down Cam Ward's incredible day out at minicamp. And Paul was like, how could you say that when you weren't at minicamp? Like, how can you say that if you weren't there? And traditionally, you know, Paul gets really high on his horse when it comes to, like, you weren't at the game, so you can't comment on the game. But, like, you can watch the game. If you can't watch minicamp, it's hard to have opinions on what happened at minicamp. So I'm not going to pretend. And tomorrow will be the final day, and I won't be out there either. But I was there yesterday. But I want to start on this. And this is something that I think is trending. And this is the Titans' relationship with Jeffrey Simmons. Now, I know we've talked a lot about Jeffrey Simmons. The morning show today talked a lot about Jeffrey Simmons. Kaharski had a lot of comments when he was on this morning about Jeffrey Simmons. And I think I figured out the issue. Because this morning I did watch the press conferences. And I did watch Denard Wilson, and just the way he defended and talked about Jeffrey Simmons, it was kind of embarrassing. It made me think less of Denard Wilson with just the constant cover that he had for Simmons. Callahan, same way. It's always just been covering. Even yesterday, it was almost like Callahan was having a tooth pulled to sit there and tell you that, yeah, you know, we'd like to see Simmons sack the quarterback more than 5.5 times a year. And I think I figured out what's happened. And I think I know where this is going. I think the Titans and Jeffrey Simmons are headed for a divorce. And I think I figured out the issue. The Titans were banking on Jeffrey Simmons, both literally with the contract that they gave him, but metaphorically. They were banking on him to be the guy that carried the team. They were banking on him being the guy who carried the mantle from Derrick Henry and Kevin Byard into the new era of Tennessee Titans. And when they did this, it was a new era with Calvin Ridley and Will Levis and Tony Pollard and J.C. Latham. And I think that was their belief, was we're going to build this team around Simmons, that Simmons is a good enough player that we can build the team around him. Simmons is a hard enough worker. He's a good enough guy. He's a strong enough leader. We can build the operation around Jeffrey Simmons. Well, I think we know that they were wrong. And I think Jeffrey Simmons looks at the Tennessee Titans and he thinks they've failed him. I used to be on a good team with Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown, and Mike Vrabel was the coach, and Bud Dupree was coming off the edge, and Danico Autry had 11.5 sacks, and when everybody else was doing what they were supposed to do, and I was doing what I was supposed to do, I was a dominant player in this league. I was going on the road to Kansas City, giving them all they could handle. We dominated the Chiefs at home. We did. And what have you done to replace Tannehill and Henry and Byard? And nothing. So you want me to be a leader of this team, but you've given me nothing but a bunch of losers. What am I supposed to do? And I'm the guy, everybody comes to my locker and they ask me why I'm not getting the sacks. But the reason I'm not getting the sacks is because the other team just looks at me and says, well, we don't have to worry about Arden Key. He blows. We don't have to worry about Harold Landry. He's old. We don't have to worry about Tavondre Sweat. He can't rush the quarterback. We only have to worry about Simmons. You signed L'Jarius Sneed. He's played for 3 games. He's hurt all the time. He's shooting up, allegedly, car dealerships. I mean, and I'm the one that everyone gets mad at. I'm the one they talk about on the Jared Stillman show all the time. And I see the friction from both sides. Again, the only time you don't show up for voluntary OTA work is when you're unhappy with your team. Sometimes it's just, I'm unhappy with the contract. In Kirk Cousins' case, he's unhappy with his role as a backup quarterback. But the only time that you really miss the voluntary stuff is when there's a reason to do it. I once asked Floyd, I said, hey, what if, it's voluntary, if Steve McNair or Eddie George wanted to go to Disney World that week and they didn't want to go to practice, and he said that would not happen. And he laughed because, again, everybody else shows up. Calvin Ridley could have done his own thing. Tony Pollard could have done his own thing. Those guys have money, but they didn't. Only one guy did his own thing, Simmons. And I think in each instance, both sides got it wrong. I think in the instance of the Titans, they thought Jeffrey Simmons was a better player than he actually is. And I think that they thought that he was a more capable leader and team ambassador than he actually is. I think they really thought, hey, this guy with the right coaching, this guy can be Aaron Donald 2.0. This guy can be Chris Jones. And look, I'm a Simmons detractor for sure. I need more than 5.5 sacks. There have been some games on the road at LA in 2021, Washington on the road in 2022. There have been some games and some moments where Jeffrey Simmons has absolutely dominated the way that, again, an Aaron Donald would dominate. Simmons dominated Cincinnati in that divisional round of the playoffs. It's not his fault Ryan Tannehill threw 3 interceptions. The Titans traded away A.J. Brown. Their fans felt betrayed, and so the Titans decided to heal that wound by leaping the praise and putting the contract onto Jeffrey Simmons. The problem with that is Jeffrey Simmons isn't good enough to be Aaron Donald. Jeffrey Simmons isn't self-aware enough to realize that even if I'm not the problem, as the leader of the team, I've got to be the one that takes the blame. He's just not a good enough teammate. He's just not a good enough leader. They invested in the wrong guy. Again, Rand Carthon is going on the TV broadcast during the preseason and talking about how, Jeff came into my office and he said that the line is doing great, as if that's supposed to be some sort of rallying cry. When things weren't going well, Simmons would get up in front of his locker and he'd talk to the media as if he were the team spokesperson, the same thing they used to do with Kevin Byard. He's not cut out for it. So that was a mistake on the Titans front. Now there's Simmons in this. When you sign the contract, when you jack up the truck, when you make your own logo, when you get out and do interviews and you talk about this and you feel like you can opine on everything, and again, it's a free country, say whatever you want. But when that happens, there is an added responsibility. There is an added expectation that you can carry the team. Again, if I'm paying you $23.5 million, I want you to go sack the quarterback. Well, but then I don't care. I don't want to hear your excuses. You've got to go sack the quarterback. I don't want to hear anybody make excuses for you. I don't want to hear you make excuses for yourself. I don't want to hear you point the finger at anybody else. I don't want you to play the blame game. I want you to carry the team. That's the expectation. I said this about Justin Herbert after he signed his contract. If you remember, the Chargers had a huge lead against Jacksonville in the playoffs, and they totally blew it. And the coach got all the blame. And then Herbert signed for $50 million. And I said, now it's on Justin Herbert to win those games. That's what the money is for. Well, how do you expect me when I'm getting double teamed to? I'm paying you to sack the quarterback. Again, if I'm making you out to be this great leader, I'm paying you to get everybody else on the same page. I'm paying you to set the example for everybody else. I'm paying you to get the fans to believe in our product. And there's no way that Jeffrey Simmons has held his end of that bargain. Zero. And yet, the Titans leadership that went all in on Jeffrey Simmons, Ran Carthon, Mike Vrabel, they're not here anymore. And I could be wrong about this, but I'm kind of convinced that big picture, Mike Morganzi, Chad Brinker, those guys are not as tied into Simmons as the previous regimes were. He's on the team. They're paying him. He's a good player. But I don't think they're of the belief that Simmons is going to save them one way or another. Which, again, leads to the divorce. Well, we don't need Jeffrey Simmons. We finished in last place with him, and we can finish in last place without him. And then there's Simmons' side of this. I used to be on a good team. My rookie year, Mike Vrabel was the head coach. Ryan Tannehill was the quarterback. A.J. Brown and Corey Davis played wide receiver. Jonnu Smith, Taylor Lewan, Jack Conklin, Derrick Henry. I played with Jarrell Casey. We had guys like Harold Landry. We had a general manager and John Robinson. And now everybody's gone except for me. What are you guys doing for me? What are you guys doing for me so that I'm not out here by myself? Vrabel's gone. Tannehill's gone. Byard's gone. Henry's gone. J-Rob's gone. Rand's gone. What are you doing for me? Danico Autry is gone. Oh, thank you. A nose tackle. The point being, I can see where the Titans are fed up with Simmons, and I can see where Simmons is upset with the Titans. And what does that lead to? I think they call that irreconcilable differences. I feel like the Titans and Simmons are headed for a divorce. And I feel like the feeling might be mutual. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025 here on the program. And there's one thing that I already know. Titans Twitter loves. Titans Twitter loves it. Oh, they love it. The usual suspects, they love this. I do not care about it whatsoever. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
You alluded to Jeff's just like banter with Cam yesterday, and that maybe bringing some energy. I guess what did you see in Cam's ability to maybe refocus, like get back in the huddle, deliver what needed to be called, and what does that maybe say about who he is and how he can handle it?
I'll be honest. I'm not used to calling plays to a quarterback who's usually still talking when I'm talking to him. And that's great. And so I asked him after practice, and I said, just help me out here. Do you need me to wait till you finish? And he goes, no, I'm listening. So he's hearing what I'm telling him. And it was a pretty remarkable to see all the things going on and how much he's talking, but like his brain is still like with me, I guess is the best way to put it. Like when I'm calling him play, he's doing, but he's listening to everything I'm telling him. And he enters right into the huddle when he calls a play and doesn't script the play call. And I thought that was actually kind of remarkable. I know I couldn't do that. So that's just kind of who he is. That's his personality. And again, if it was something that I felt like was detrimental to his ability to manage the offense and call it in a huddle and all that, I'd probably have a couple things to say to him, but he didn't miss a beat when it came to calling the play and being on top of it and then executing when it came time to execute. So it was new experience for me, but it was fun.
There you go. That was Brian Callahan talking about the trash talking between Cam Ward and Jeffrey Simmons. And the usual places on the internet, there's this big thing of Cam Ward and Jeffrey Simmons are trash talking. Yay! And I can tell you right now, let me say this. Of all the things in my life that I do not give one crap about whatsoever, one iota, it is who on the Titans talks trash during practice. Quite frankly, there's nothing about anything the Titans say that I give a rat's ass about because I'm done with all the talk. I'm worried about who's actually walking the walk. And I think that's the problem around here with this fan base. I can't explain it because I do think other fan bases are sometimes just as gullible as Titans fans or care about some of the stupider things that Titans fans care about. Like, again, if the Predators had two players on their team that trash talked each other during practice or what, I don't think Predators fans would like that. Like, I don't think they would care about it. But Titan fans, Cam Ward, Jeffrey Simmons, oh, yeah, alpha males. Again, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about, can Cam Ward throw a touchdown pass outside the numbers? Can Jeffrey Simmons shed a double team and get to the quarterback? That's what I worry about. And I think this idea, it's just so silly. Again, and I know people are going to be like, Jared, we want something to be excited about. Why can't we be excited about Cam Ward and Jeffrey Simmons talking trash at practice? Because it's meaningless. That's why. How silly does that sound? You know what I really got excited about was that the best offensive player, we hope, we have no idea if he's good or not, he's never played, but the best offensive player and the best defensive player are trash talking each other at practice. Oh, wow, that's a big deal. You know who didn't talk trash? Derrick Henry. You know who played on Sundays and produced on Sundays? And even though he had a terrible offensive line in front of him for the last 2 years, still ran for over 1,000 yards. And when he had those games where he didn't go anywhere, he didn't get up there and bemoan the fact that the other team put 9 men in the box and there was nothing he could do about it because they hit him 3 yards into the backfield. Derrick Henry. You guys have to stop getting excited about things that don't matter. That's how you talk yourself into Will Levis as your franchise quarterback and how you buy mayonnaise-flavored perfume. That's how that happens. Is instead of trying to really evaluate the team and then set your own internal expectations where they should be and calibrate them the right way, you just want to say things like, let Rand cook, and then go, and get all excited about it. That's what this Cam Ward, Jeffrey Simmons trash talking thing is. It's just all about the, oh, yeah, look at him go. Look at him. Oh, yeah. Like, this isn't a beer commercial. This is an NFL team. I'm trying to win football games. So I'm paying attention to things that matter. Again, I wasn't at minicamp today. And I texted I texted Gentry Estes and I said, hey, what happened today at practice? And he gave me a rundown. And he talked about a throw that Cam Ward made. He said when it came to Cam Ward, he threw a touchdown pass today, a bomb to Calvin Ridley. And I said back and I said, was the throw outside the numbers? He said the Ridley touchdown, don't think so. Ward definitely remained most effective in the middle of the field. I did like that even with pressure, Ward got rid of the ball, and he's awfully good at that. Again, I mean, that's great, but I'm like, okay, he throws a bomb to Ridley. I want to know, was that outside the numbers? Because if Cam Ward is throwing the ball outside the numbers and is throwing it deep outside the numbers, and he's going to be efficient in the middle of the field, that is game-changing. That's what I care about. I don't care about who's trash talking to on the field anymore. I don't care about who's saying what anymore. Again, the Titans did this last year where they talked you all into all this crazy stuff that you believed. I'm into who's actually going to go up there and perform. Oh, did you see him trash talking? Yeah. Again, like, what are we doing? It's just crazy. And I just see it all over the internet too. Like, oh, I'm going to love this Cam and Simmons stuff. Like, I'm going to love it if, Simmons sacks the quarterback and Cam's throwing touchdown passes in games. That's what I'm going to love. Again, most of you people can't even go to practice anyways. So what do you care about what happens in practice? One texter says, and our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Brian Callahan is the biggest kiss ass there is. If I'm Callahan, I want Simmons to shut up and listen and prove things before he's out there participating in these scripted trash talk sessions. I got to say, that Callahan cut where Callahan was sitting there saying, like, I said to Cam, like, you want me to wait till you're done trash talking before I call the play? I think I'd be like, Cam, let's throw an NFL touchdown pass before we start trash talking everybody out there. And then again, with Simmons, I mean, again, Simmons is the biggest. This is what drives me crazy about Simmons. Simmons talks all this trash, talks such a big game, and then when he doesn't sack the quarterback and he can't back it up, he goes there and says, well, you tell them they double team me. I know. By the way, one texter says that Callahan is the biggest kiss ass out there. I disagree. I actually don't even think that Brian Callahan is the biggest kiss ass on the coaching staff. There is a cut that we are going to play for you that, again, I thought was embarrassing. We'll get to that next. Hey, tune into ESPN 94.9 The Fan today as the Nashville Sounds take on Norfolk. Pregame begins at 5:20. The first pitch is at 5:35. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds baseball on ESPN 94.9 The Fan. Presented by Twin Peaks and by Family Leisure.
It's very crucial. Like I said, that's one of the reasons why, I had no question. It wasn't no question for me not to be here for mandatory minicamp. Like I said, it was the voluntary stuff that I wasn't here for, but, just to be around the guys, to be able to, I know it's not that much time, but being around the guys, spend time with them out of the building, being able to spend that quality time, not just on the field, but off the field. Just try to build more relationships, since I haven't been here, but it's very crucial. And not just off the field, but when we're on the field, just to try to get a connection with Cody, all these new guys that's on the defense side of the ball. So, it's going to be big on the field and in the locker room and outside the building.
I love how Jeffrey Simmons is like, it is crucial that I'm here for mandatory minicamp. It is so important that we get on the same page and that we get the communication down with all the new guys and we get to work out, we get to this and we get to that. It's just crucial that I'm here. And that's one of the reasons why I came to mandatory minicamp. No, the reason you showed up for mandatory minicamp is because you're required to show up for mandatory minicamp. And it's the same reason you didn't show up for the OTAs, because you didn't have to go. That's why. It's just so dishonest. And it's kind of embarrassing. But it's not as embarrassing as this. So Denard Wilson today, I listened to his press conference. And, when I first heard Denard Wilson talk in a press conference, I thought to myself, this guy, he's got a lot of energy. And he talked about how important pass rush was. And he was, felt very direct and very demonstrative and very, motivating. I was like, man, there's some juice with this guy. But then as the losses continued to pile up and the excuses kept coming out of his mouth last year, I started to think, I'm not sure Denard Wilson's really defensive coordinator material. Today, Denard Wilson was meeting with the media, and he was asked about the new look Jeff Simmons body, where Jeff Simmons took it upon himself, wasn't asked by the team, took it upon himself to lose some weight, which I have a thought about as well. But just listen to this Q&A regarding Denard Wilson and Jeffrey Simmons. Play the cut.
Jeff coming back in the shape that he did, how beneficial is that going to be for him and for you guys in the way that you keep going?
Oh, it's going to be beneficial all the way around. First of all, I'm jealous, right? Because when I look at him, I'm like, damn, he looks great right now. So he's inspired me to go get in better shape this offseason. So I might do a little bit of training. But I think that, Jeff is coming back and he's trying to be the best version of himself. He's in great shape right now, and his attitude is unbelievable. We have the mindset around here right now, and especially on defense, and every rep, everything we do, refuse to lose. And he has that mindset. He refuses to lose, and there's no excuse. And that's for all of us as a defense. And so I like where he's at. I like the energy that he brings when he's around here. I like the attention to detail, how demanding he is with the other players. So I think that Jeff's going to take another step. He's going to be the best version of himself, and we'll line up and people going to have to deal with him.
Okay. Again, he sat there at the beginning and was like, well, he's motivated me to lose weight because he looks so good. Talk about ass kissing. That's the first thing. The second thing was, and Jeff, I'll tell you, he's got a great attitude. A great attitude. He refuses to lose. They lost 14 games last year. He refuses to lose. I mean, I've seen them do a lot of losing. I would say he does not refuse to lose. In fact, I think that he contributes to the losing, if I had to be honest. And then my favorite part of that entire thing right there, again, talking about how great he is and his great attitude and how he refuses to lose and everything else. And he's like, man, I'll tell you, this Jeffrey Simmons, he's just the best. Again, we sit here all the time and we talk about Jeffrey Simmons needs to get some more sacks. And yet Denard Wilson's telling us there are no excuses. Can we play that cut again? Refuse to lose and no excuses. When all Simmons has done lately is lose and make excuses. Play the cut.
Jeff coming back in the shape that he did, how beneficial is that going to be for him and for you guys in the way that you keep going?
Oh, it's going to be beneficial all the way around. First of all, I'm jealous, right? Because when I look at him, I'm like, damn, he looks great right now. So he's inspired me to go get in better shape this offseason. So I might do a little bit of training. But I think that, Jeff is coming back and he's trying to be the best version of himself. He's in great shape right now, and his attitude is unbelievable. We have the mindset around here right now, and especially on defense, and every rep, everything we do, refuse to lose. And he has that mindset. He refuses to lose, and there's no excuse. And that's for all of us as a defense. And so I like where he's at. I like the energy that he brings when he's around
Okay,
here. I
that's
like
good
the
enough.
attention to detail.
I like the energy he brings when he's around. He's been there one day. Again, be more of a kiss ass to Nard Wilson. Like, are you a coach or are you his own personal PR person? Because I haven't heard anybody blow up somebody's tires the way I've heard Denard Wilson blow up Jeffrey Simmons' tires. That's embarrassing. So again, that one texter said Callahan's the biggest kiss ass. I said, I don't even think Callahan's the biggest kiss ass on the coaching staff. One texter says, in our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, nail on the head with your Simmons Titans divorce. They're walking on eggshells in hopes that he'll perform well enough to increase his trade value. Both Simmons and the organization know that he doesn't care to be in Nashville anymore. I think Simmons wants out. And I think the Titans are hopeful to oblige soon enough. I really believe that. You know, they was telling Callahan had a quote today where he was asked about Simmons losing the weight. And he said that Simmons took that upon himself. And I'm like, the reason that Simmons took the weight loss upon himself is because Simmons is saying, screw you guys, I'm going to go get sacks. I'm telling you, Simmons has made it known. He hears people saying, this guy never gets sacks. So he's decided, I'm going to go get sacks. Forget about what they want me to do. Forget about that. I'm going to just do whatever it takes for me to get sacks so everyone will get off my ass. Again, that's kind of counterproductive when it comes to growing the football team. You're supposed to do what the coaches ask. One texter says, Simmons will be too old by the time that the Titans are a contender again. He probably isn't worth the money he's getting now, let alone a raise in the future. Time to move on. One texter says, yesterday you said Simmons was being selfish for losing weight and trying to get more sacks. Now today you're saying he needs to get more sacks. Which one is it? Again, Bill Belichick, and Floyd told me this after he was the lead negotiator in New England. He said, Bill, when it comes to incentives in the contract, you know, you'll see incentives. If you throw for 5,000 yards, here's $500,000. If you catch 8 touchdowns, here's $1 million. If you, in New England, Bill Belichick only wanted team accomplishments in the incentives. So if we go to the AFC Championship game, here's $250,000. And the reason Belichick didn't want personal goals in there, but he wanted team goals, was because he wanted guys to put the team first. Simmons, I'm telling you, he's lost the weight because he's decided, I'm going to go get my stats. I don't care what the coach asks. I don't care winning or losing. That doesn't bother me. We've done enough losing. I know how to lose now. I'm not worried about it. But I'm going to go get my stats because I'm tired of everybody else bothering me and asking me about, you know, I'm so tired of everybody asking me why I'm not getting sacks. So I'm going to go get the sacks. I mean, I'm sorry. That's what that is. One texter says, hearing Callahan say that he is blown away by Cam Ward's ability every day is so cheesy. Get me out of the fever dream. This team has no one to guide it through this disaster of a franchise, and it's especially not Callahan. I got to tell you, man, I just get the vibe, and I could be totally wrong about this. I get the vibe that Brinker and Borgonzi are operating, and like the personnel people are operating in a totally different silo than the coaching staff, where it's like they know, hey, we can fire this coaching staff at the end of the year. We'll be okay. And the coaching staff is like, we got to make sure that Jeff likes us and that everybody, that we win some games so that we keep our jobs and everything else. One texter says, I hear what you're saying when it comes to the trash talk, but I do like the fact that Cam Ward is not intimidated and is chirping back. If Cam Ward is intimidated when wearing a non-contract jersey in a practice, then you drafted the wrong guy. I mean, I don't think Will Levis was intimidated by trash talk. I think Will Levis was intimidated by being a failure, which you can only experience in the games. I think the reason that he threw that pass and panicked against the Bears and he rolled the ball on the ground is because Will Levis was so afraid to fail. Well, you're not going to experience that in a practice. So the idea that, well, he's not intimidated, again, everybody's got a plan until they get popped in the mouth. One texter says, man, all you do is cry about everything. Is everything okay? Well, I mean, other than the fact that your team's the worst team in the NFL and your star player decided not to show up to OTAs and then told all of us that it's just crucial. I mean, just crucial that he's there for mandatory minicamp. And other than that, yeah, I'd say everything's okay. I mean, the Titans stink. I spent all last year saying the Titans were going to stink. Everybody said, well, Jared, you're a hater. And then by week 3, people were like, damn, Jared was right. Again, when it comes to Callahan and the ass kissing that goes on around here and the coaching staff and Denard Wilson, and again, you're going to have a problem with that week 3 when they're getting their asses kicked and Denard Wilson saying the same things he said last year, like Jeff's the best player on this team. He's getting great pressure on the quarterback and we're watching him not sack the quarterback. That's just how it is. And I'm going to tell you, I think there are people over there that know this is not a very good team. Cody says, I actually do care about the trash talking. Simmons and Cam. Simmons is a bum and a bully that needs to be traded for whatever they can get. Levis obviously folded under the pressure and Callahan protected both. If Cam stands up to Simmons, then my hope is that it further exposes Simmons to be nothing more than a big mouth in practice and ship him off to the highest bidder. Again, it's not like Cam's going to slug him. Now, I'll say this. If there's a brouhaha in practice, and this only happens in like 95-degree heat with pads on, you're not going to see this in a mandatory minicamp. But if there were a little brouhaha and Cam threw one out there, again, I'd be against it because you throw a punch, you could break your hand, and I don't like that. But I would say that would show some real oomph, not trash talking in practice. LD from McMinnville says, so being motivated or inspired by someone is ass kissing. Not everybody wants to be sloppy fat like you. First of all, I'd say I'm doing okay. Secondly, and more importantly here, when you tell me that Jeffrey Simmons, who lost 14 games last year, refuses to lose, you tell me he's got a great attitude when all I've seen him do is bitch and moan about being double teamed. When you sit there and you tell me that there are no excuses when all he does is make excuses, I'd say that's ass kissing. Sorry. Chris Sanders will join us next here on the program. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
great to be back out here on the field with the guys, getting to work with the guys. It's not always a easy decision, making that decision not to be here with your teammates, especially with a lot of new guys. First pick of the draft, not being here, but I made that decision. It's a personal decision. Today was a good day. I was glad to be back. Like I said, that was my decision. It was a personal decision, and that's pretty much what it was. And like I said, it felt great to be back out here today.
What led into that decision to stay away?
Like I said, it was a personal decision, and like I said, today I was back out here full of energy. It was great to be back out here with the guys.
Personal football decision?
It's a person from football, off the field, everything. Like I said, I made that decision because of me.
All right, there you go. That was Jeffrey Simmons yesterday. And then he would later say that mandatory minicamp is crucial. Okay. Former Titans receiver Chris Sanders joins us on the program. Chris Sanders, I have got to know your reaction to Jeffrey Simmons' comments the last couple of days.
First of all, I want to say that Jeffrey Simmons is a good guy off the field. He's a great guy, in the community.
Now, are you sure about that?
He does some good stuff, man, especially with kids and helping a lot of people. I want to be careful when I say this because, I'm going to talk about the football play. I'm going to talk about what he does in the football field. I don't want to talk about what he does off the field, but I want to say he's a good dude. But I just think that for me, this is just for me, as being one of the leaders of the team, the pillar of the defense, I just think that, you have to be there because you got rookies in here. You got different guys that are playing different positions. And I think as a leader of the defense, you want to make sure they hear your voice. And I think that this is just my opinion. I just think that if you're going to lead, then you got to lead by example and be there. So I know it's voluntary. I know that he doesn't have to be there. But sometimes as a leader, you're going to have to do some things that you don't want to do. I mean, I respect Jeffrey Simmons to the utmost, and I think he's a great dude. But I just think that when you're put in that leadership position, you got to lead, even if you don't do reps, even if you don't do the drills, even if you don't do the things that they're asking you to do at that moment, just be on the sidelines. Or, TD kind of corrected me on some things and said, okay, how do you know he didn't call the rookies and said, I'm not going to be here, but I'll make sure I'm there. So it's just so many things that you can take away from it. But as for me, I just wish he would be there.
Okay, so what did you make yesterday of the excuse making when it came to him always being double teamed and not getting sacks?
I mean, I agree with you. Even what he said may be true, but I just think that you don't want to get into a situation to where you say, well, I got double teamed and I got this and this, that. Regardless, it's got to be a we thing, not an I thing. Just like what I texted you yesterday. When you talk about being a leader, you always incorporate we. You don't say, well, I got double teamed and, there's a lot of hands on me. That's not what you say. What you say as a leader, say, you know what? I just didn't make enough plays like I'm capable of making. I just didn't get enough sacks like I'm capable of making. And I think when you say things like that on what you need to improve on, then I think a lot of people will really respect what you want to do.
Chris, I have a theory. I think the Titans and Simmons are headed for a divorce. I believe that the Titans are probably frustrated with Simmons and his constant barrage of bull crap. And I think Simmons probably looks at it and says, hey, I mean, I was here when Derrick Henry was here and Mike Vrabel was here and Ryan Tannehill was here and A.J. Brown was here and everybody's got a get out of jail free card except for me.
Right.
I just don't see this lasting that much longer. Do you agree with that or do you not?
I don't know, but I just think that there's some discord somewhere. I don't know where that came from. I don't know because in my opinion, I just think that there's a disconnect. I don't know if it's with the coaches or the organization to where if he doesn't want to be here, because listen, when you love your organization, when you love what you do, then you're going to call the coaches or figure out a way to make sure you stay in contact with them. But I just, there's a little disconnect somewhere. I'm just going to keep it at that.
Okay, Chris Sanders with us on the program. Does it excite you when you hear that Cam Ward was 20 of 21 yesterday in practice?
Yes.
Does any of that actually matter to you? What does matter to you?
No, it does. I mean, I know it's in shorts. I know he's, they're blitzing him and they can't really hit him. But if he's going 20 for 21, that means he's comfortable not just in his ability, but he's comfortable in the system. And I just like I said, I went and watched him last week, and the two things that I saw is, number one, he's comfortable. He's comfortable in the pocket. He's comfortable on what he's doing. And then number two, the decision making, before he even makes a decision. I love what he's doing. I know it's early. I know it 20 for 21 in 7-on-7 or 20 for 21 in shorts is like, oh, it's he's just in shorts. But at the end of the day, if he's doing those things right now and he builds on it and he develops into the quarterback that he's capable of being, then I think, the Titans fans got something to hang their hat on.
Chris, I'm not going to pretend like I was there today. I wasn't there today.
Yeah.
It seems, though, like what I saw yesterday, Cam is very comfortable throwing the ball over the middle of the field. Yeah. I do wonder about his ability to throw the ball outside the numbers. Mm-hmm. Levis hit Io Manor on one outside the numbers. Levis throwing the ball outside the numbers, that does not concern me. I know he's got an arm. I'm a little worried that, again, all of Cam's good throws come over the middle. It reminds me a little bit of Mariota, who was very good inside the numbers. How much, again, you're a speed guy who played outside the numbers.
Yeah.
How important is it for Cam to have that club in his bag to be able to hit throws down the field outside the numbers?
I mean, he's going to have to do that. And the thing that he's going to really have to learn is he's got to have anticipation. He can't throw when the guy's open. He's got to throw it right when he puts his foot in the ground and comes back to the ball. So those are things you can work on, and those are things you can improve. But, I just think that, the one thing he has to do is keep building on what he's doing. I know he's throwing the ball over the middle and completing those, but if he's not completing those outside the number or on a perimeter or in the boundary, then that's something he's going to have to build on, because what you're going to do, you're going to get defenses that are smart to say, okay, this kid can throw in the middle, but he can't throw on the outside. So what they're going to do, they're going to box him in, put pressure on him, and make him throw interceptions. So if he can build on, throwing the ball like a dig route and also throwing a little comeback on the outside, then I think his game can go to the next level.
Chris Sanders is with us. Where are you on Callahan? I feel like I've heard from him and his coaches just too much happy, everything's great, positive. Oh, this isn't a big problem. This guy's great, that guy's great, this thing's awesome, that thing's great. Where are you on Callahan?
I hate to say this, but I like what I'm seeing, and I know that sounds kind of crazy. And the reason why I say that is because last week I had the chance to see my eyeballs and see actually what's going on. There's just a different kind of feel, a different kind of energy, and I think that, with that happening, and it's not that everybody's, happy go looking, hey, brother, we're doing good. It's not none of that, because I guarantee you, coaches are keeping cats accountable. Coaches are getting in guys' face. Coaches are coaching the technique. So when you have
Are
guys
you sure of that?
Yes, I watched it. I saw it. I see it with my eyes. And just looking, I was watching the receiver coach, Coach Tolbert. I watch what he does. If the guy doesn't get the right depth, that ain't what I want. If he doesn't get the guy on the spot, that ain't what I want. If he doesn't catch the ball at the high spot, that ain't what I want. So they're correcting and keeping guys accountable. Then I watch, the linebacker coach. Man, he's getting after these dudes. So even though the guys are having fun, the coaches are really in their grill and saying, pay attention to detail. So I like it. I know it's a different energy and a different fun, but let me tell you something. It's a little different feel this year than last year.
Chris, I looked at Traylon Burks yesterday.
Yeah.
And I looked at Chigakonkwo, and I'm like, I think Traylon Burks should move to tight end.
He's huge. Yeah, he is huge, man.
I mean, at what point does he move to tight end? At what point does it just make more sense to try it?
Yeah, but see, it's not as easy as moving from wide receiver to tight end, because wide receiver, all you got to do is run routes and block on the perimeter. When you're at tight end, you got to run routes, you got to do things like that, but also you got to block the inside zone and outside zone. I mean, you got to block, the 9 technique. You got to block so many guys, and I just think that he may be a pass catcher, but we don't know if he can block the inside zone and outside zone. So I know everybody wants to label him because he's a ginormous dude. I mean, he's ginormous. He's big, but I still think you keep him out of the perimeter, because that's where he best can do his skill at. So I don't want to put him at tight end, because there's more things than just catching the football. He's got to block different schemes and block different techniques. So you keep him out of the perimeter.
Okay, last one for you. Mandatory mini camp ends tomorrow. They won't be back until the start of training camp. Going into training camp, what is your expectation this season for the Titans?
I mean, it all depends on what your quarterback does. I mean, I think the defense is going to be pretty good. The only thing I'm kind of concerned about is the secondary. I think the defensive back don't have the foot speed. But And I think the offensive line is going to be pretty good. They got some different guys in free agency like Dan Moore and Zeller, guys like that. And then you got some receivers that can make some plays. But it's all going to depend on what Cam Ward does.
Chris Sanders, as always, joining us on the program. Chris, great stuff. We'll talk soon.
Appreciate you, brother. Love you, man. Peace out.
Yep. Chris Sanders joining us on the program. He thinks Simmons should be there. Wants to say he thinks Simmons is a good dude. I don't know about all that. I'm not going to go that far. There is a Simmons story that I don't even know if I totally feel comfortable getting into it, but it's a pretty eye-opening story. We'll get into it coming up next here on the program. Hey, this week's Nashville's Best Deal is Staley's Chicago Italian Dining, one of Nashville's best-kept secrets and winners of numerous Best of awards. Enjoy authentic Italian beef sandwiches, Vienna Chicago dogs, and the best gyros south of Chicago. Get half off a $20 gift card now while supplies last. TheGameNational.com/deals. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. David Reed, I don't want to age you on this program, but are you old enough to remember Titans legend Travis Henry?
If you have to begin a sentence talking to me, asking if I'm old enough to remember, the answer is usually going to be yes. Yes, I do remember Travis Henry and his flock of children. Is that where we're going with this?
Well, I mean, just when it comes to Travis Henry, I was in high school when this all went down. I mean, wasn't the story with Travis Henry that like they came to get child support? They came to the practice field to get his child support, and the Titans had to loan him money so that he could pay the child support so he would be able to practice and not have to go to jail?
I remember that rumor. I was not there at that time, so I can't confirm nor deny that. But that, given the situation and how it escalated post NFL career for Travis Henry, I would say that that's a good likelihood that that's something that would happen.
So I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember, again, the story was like Travis Henry had 13 kids with 14 different women or something like that. And I'll never forget my baseball coach at the time saying, man, I have got to step my game up. I have one child with one woman, and Travis Henry's out here. And so it was something that was talked about. It was something that was laughed about. So apparently I totally missed this. I have no idea how I totally missed this, but I totally and completely missed this. Terry McCormick had a report on May 13th. That may have been when I was in Costa Rica, but that's no excuse. Terry McCormick has a report. This was in the in Main Street Media saying, quote, Tennessee Titans defensive lineman Jeffrey Simmons has had a lawsuit filed for a motion of contempt against him in his home state of Mississippi regarding his alleged failure to provide sufficient medical support for his special needs son. Simmons is the respondent in a case filed on March 7th in Leake County Chancery Court, summoning him to appear in Madison County Chancery Court on May 20th in Canton, Mississippi. The complaint was filed by attorneys for plaintiff Karsala Steve, who is the mother and primary caretaker for the couple's 6-year-old special needs son. She has requested an emergency hearing on the matter. The civil lawsuit seeks a modification of an agreement from October 28th of 2020 regarding the custody care for the child. In that agreement, which went into effect on November 1st, Simmons is responsible to pay $6,000 a month of child support, as well as provide health insurance and pay for medical bills and care of his son. In the latest motion filed alleges that Simmons failed to pay for a needed speech communications device for the child. In the suit filed, she also requested a special wheelchair accessible vehicle is needed as part of a request to increase Simmons' contributions, so on and so forth. Again, I don't want to get into like the son stuff or whatever it may be, but when it comes to Simmons, first of all, I find this story to basically be bordering on the line that I'm willing to walk up to, which is it makes me a little uncomfortable to talk about somebody and their son and their child support and everything else. Because I am trying to determine what's the line between what's too personal and what's not. And I do remember how we used to talk about Travis Henry and we used to joke about it and things like that. And this is a lawsuit, which means it becomes public information. Simmons was asked about it yesterday at camp and had no response to it. And I had no idea about the Jeffrey Simmons child support lawsuit. And again, it makes me uncomfortable to comment on. But it is a public story. And this is the kind of stuff. Chris Sanders came on in the last segment and he was like, I know Jeffrey Simmons is a good guy. And I'm like, do you? Do you? Because when I hear a story like this, and again, who knows what's alleging what, it's a lawsuit. And Simmons could have said something yesterday, but he chose not to, and that's his business. But when it's this, and there was the video that came out when he was in high school. And then there was Marshall Yonda saying that he spit in his face. And there's just, him going after Buck with that confrontation last year in public. It's where I start to hear all these things that pile up together. And I'm like, is this really the Walter Payton Man of the Year representative for the Tennessee Titans? And I'm like, is this really the kind of dude that you want around your program? Again, we already know Simmons is incredibly moody. We already know that he's not self-aware, but it's like there's all these stories and they're all negative. It's like, dude, like, is this the kind of guy you want around Cam Ward? Is this the kind of guy you want around these young guys? I mean, the way they talk about it, it's like, oh, thank God we have the great Jeff Simmons. But then I read a story that's like, hey, he's being sued for not, again, providing the medical care that he's supposed to. He's being sued for it. And this guy makes $23.5 million a year. The report says, according to a letter from Steve's attorney, Keith Gates, to Simmons' attorney, dated on January 23rd, Gates writes, the support order specifically mandates that your client provide all the financial medical support for his child, which is crucial for his well-being and development. As outlined in the support order, your client is required to provide insurance as well as to pay for all medicine, medical devices, and medical treatments that are required for the child. However, it has come to my attention that your client has failed to provide the proper medical care as needed by the child, and there have been instances where these requirements have not fully been met. This has resulted in significant challenges in ensuring that the child receives necessary medical care and support. I kindly request that your client takes immediate action to comply with the terms of the support order. According to the letter, Steve requested a second time through the previous support order that Simmons pay for a communications device. I'm like, again, can we get a positive story? I know he and Jelly Roll went to the, he and Jelly Roll went to the prison or whatever, and they met with the inmates to give them hope and things like that. But can we get like a positive story? Like, and I mean like a really, truly positive story. I'm just starting to see this stuff, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm like, is this the guy you want around here? Is this the guy you want to put up on the buildings? Is this the guy you want when, again, it's everybody's walking on eggshells, it feels like, around there? Again, these coaches get asked about it, and Denard Wilson's like, his attitude has been incredible. Been there for one day. His attitude's been incredible. It just seems all kind of phony to me. And that's what all I really ask for. Again, is this intellectual honesty. That is like, hey, man, if you want to be Barry Bonds, go be Barry Bonds. But at least just be it. And so I got to say, again, this was another Jeffrey Simmons story. And it does feel to me like this is, again, it's not funny like the Travis Henry stuff was funny, although who knows where that is now. But it's just doesn't seem right. Again, it's another story about Simmons. At what point do we add all this up and say, yeah, I don't know if this is a guy you want on your team. Remember when they drafted him and they brought Amy Adams Strunk into the draft room or into the press conference because they wanted to talk about his character? Well, I mean, I've got a pretty good feeling now on Jeffrey Simmons' character. It ain't great. I'm just going to tell you that right now. It ain't great. Because it's always one incident after another one. And this is, again, I guess another one where it's like, here's a headline in a story that is absolutely incredibly negative. Now, TD has texted me. And TD says that the Simmons stuff has been resolved. So at least that's one box that's checked. But again, I'm talking about when it comes to wanting this guy on your team, when it comes to this guy being your Walter Payton Man of the Year, it's like, I don't know. Does not seem right. 615-737-1025. We'll get into more of your phones. 615-737-1025. And I do have to, we got to talk about something Paul said this morning about this story. And I'm kind of laughing about it, but I'm also kind of disappointed by it. So I've got a thought. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. You know those guys. They take great care of my home. They can do the same for you. Have you ever called a plumber, an electrician, or an HVAC tech and felt like they were trying to sell you something that you absolutely did not need? If a deal sounds too good to be true, like a $99 club membership or a $29 tune-up, that's because it is. The reality is they have to find something to fix so they can cover the costs for those discounted club memberships. Unlike the other guys, Hiller never offers deals designed to trick you or sell you something that you don't need. You all hear me talking about my friends at Hiller, and I do it all the time. But this is why I trust Hiller in my home, because I know that they are honest and they will take great care of me, period. So schedule online like I do at happyhiller.com. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call the Happy Face truck today. Stillman and Company. So this morning, I was actually with my dad. We were in the car. We were taking my dog and his dogs, and we were going somewhere. And again, that's kind of neither here nor there. But we had dropped the dogs off. We're on our way back. And Robbie Stanley, listening to Robbie and Rexford, Robbie was like, PK has a rant that he's going to do today on the program. And I turned to my dad in the car and I said, I know exactly what this rant is. I know exactly what it is. I said, I bet it is PK going off on podcasters and content creators who don't even live in Nashville, who quote unquote cover the Titans, who are making podcasts about Cam Ward's incredible day at minicamp yesterday, who weren't there. I mean, Reed, back me up on this. That is a bowling ball right up Paul's alley, right for a strike of media guys that aren't even, credentialed media guys that are doing podcasts, gassing fans up about things they didn't see.
Oh, if ever there was a lane for someone in the media to complain about that, that's his lane. Like, stay out of it.
So I just knew that's what that was going to be. So I waited to hear if that's what it was. It actually wasn't. And I was surprised by what his rant was about. And I was, quite frankly, kind of appalled. So again, we brought up the story that Terry McCormick reported about Jeffrey Simmons and the legal issues surrounding the mother of his child and his child's medical care and everything else. And Paul tells the story of how he was the one that had to ask Simmons about it yesterday on the practice field. Here was Paul's story. Let's play the first cut first, which I'm a little disappointed in Terry McCormick after hearing.
I talked to Terry about this a couple times in the press room because we thought Simmons might have been available, during the first open OTA before we knew he wasn't around and all of that. And I said to Terry, you're going to ask him about this, right? Like, it's your story. He said, oh yeah. I'll ask him about it. I don't care. Because I feel like the L'Jarius Sneed thing I've been covering, which is a much more complicated and much more serious case with the felony pending. But I'll absolutely follow through on that to the degree that I've been following it. And it's a complicated case. And I've been talking to DAs and police and all of that. So we get out there. Jeff talks for like 12 minutes. It's winding down. I'm looking for McCormick and he's nowhere to be found. He's 3 feet behind the scrum doing this thing that we all probably have this look once in a while where he's like already withdrawn from the Simmons thing. And he's got this look on his face where he's like looking around like who he's going to talk to next. And I'm like, what the hell? What the hell? So I'm left to ask Simmons. Now, we know the odds are that Simmons is not going to come. Correct. But the obligation is if you've reported a story that's this woman's side of the story, you need to give Jeff a chance to tell his side of the story. Now, I know a bunch of people are out there saying, well, Simmons isn't going to say anything. Well, that's fine if Simmons isn't going to say anything. We have to give him the opportunity to say something and get on the record that he's not going to say anything. So I ask him and he says, I'm not going to talk about that. And then, of course, he says, I knew you'd be the guy to ask that, right? So I'm the jerk, right? I have
the first time ever.
I have to be the jerk. And Terry can't take the bullet for his own story, which he got plenty of clicks on when he put out the case, right?
I'm on Paul's side. Terry's got to ask that question. And the fact that Paul talked to Terry about it ahead of time, again, according to Paul, the fact that Paul talked to Terry McCormick about it ahead of time, and Terry was like, yeah, I'm going to ask it, and then he didn't ask it, that's a bad look. It reminds me, my first year that I was here, and the Titans were absolutely awful. Awful. Ken Wisenhunt was the coach. You guys remember it. And I asked Floyd, again, I was young. I was 25 years old. And I said to Floyd, I go, I'm going to ask Ken Wisenhunt about the play calling. Like, I think it's time for him to give it up. And I'm going to ask him if he thinks that he's considered giving up the play calling. And Floyd said to me, he goes, totally legit, totally fair question. So I went there and I asked, and I said, hey, you're 30th in the league in offense. Have you considered giving up the play calling? And Ken Wisenhunt was like, I haven't really thought about it. John Glennon asked a question about Harry Douglas's injury, which tells you how long ago this was. Again, that was the question. Harry Douglas's injury. And Wisenhunt just goes back to me and goes, what do you think? I said, what do you mean? He goes, what do you think about what you asked me? And I was like, the play calling? He said, yeah. I was like, I think you should give it up. And people in the room were like, whoa. And Terry McCormick was sitting behind me and just goes, shh. Like as if the coach didn't ask me what I thought. I'm like, no. This is the new way to do things. We're going to ask the question. So I'm disappointed. And I think some people will say, well, Paul's just making this about himself. Or in fairness, I do think that Paul Kuharsky looks like the bad guy a lot of the time because of his own doing. But in this case, he's not the bad guy. Terry's got to ask the question. If you're going to publish the story, and he published the story, you have to ask the question. He didn't ask the question. That's not the part that bothers me the most, though. This is the part that bothers me the most. And it is when Paul discusses the junior reporters that were there and their reaction to the situation. Play the cut.
And so I say to a couple other guys, Easton Freeze and TJ Runke, when we're walking in, what jerks.
JT Runke, I think, but sure.
JT.
Keep going.
Did I say
fine. You said
TJ?
TJ.
I apologize. JT's a great guy.
He's worked up.
He produces my podcast. I love him. So we're walking into the building and I say, you guys, just all of you are so damn soft. Like you'll talk on your shows all about this case, all about the Snead case, and none of you will have done any work on any of it or asked a difficult question on any of it. And they go, yeah. I said, so Simmons will be mad at me again over this. Snead will be mad at me over that when I do it, and you won't have asked anything about it. You'll just hang me out to dry and let me ask it. They said, yeah.
That drives me crazy. And I will tell you why. Because while I talk about a lot of things that other people report, you guys know me. I do my own dirty work. If I've got to ask a confrontational question, I ask it. If I feel like somebody doesn't, and we got these young guys out here that want to do this, that want people to listen to them, that want people to believe that they have an authority on the team, and they are just openly saying, yeah, we're not going to ask the controversial stuff. We'll make Paul do it. Again, as somebody who does ask controversial stuff, that's weak. That's soft. Now, if that didn't happen and TJ Runke and Easton Freeze can say, hey, that's not true. Paul made that up. I have no idea. I'm guessing that's not made up. If that's true, if those guys were like, yeah, we're going to talk about the controversial stuff, but we're not going to ask about the controversial stuff because we don't want to do it, that's weak. That's soft. And that's embarrassing to be a media member. Like, again, I don't understand this. Sometimes I think people just want other people to like them. So they want a show. So they can tell people, oh, I've got a show. And so it's like, that's really the point of the show is not to do the show. The point of the show is not to entertain other people. The point of the show is not to get people to listen or watch the show so that you can make money for doing that. The point of the show is to say to other people, I have a show. And I think there are far too many people in this industry that do that. Well, if you can't have the stones to ask a real question, why would anybody ever take anything you say seriously? I got to say, again, a lot of times people don't care about the intertwined media, this, media, that, and I get it. And I know because I'm in the media, I care about these things a little bit more. But I think Paul was right this morning to go on a rant about this and to highlight the fact that everybody thinks he's a total a-hole. And oftentimes it's because, no disrespect, but he's the one doing it. But in this case, he's the one that had to do it because nobody else apparently wanted to do it. And I think he was right to call out Terry McCormick for that. And he was right to call out these junior guys for it because, again, I mean, these guys, they're going to try to act like real big time actual covering the team people, but they don't have the stones to actually do it. I was stunned. Again, I thought his rant was going to be about people not being at camp yesterday, that we're talking about Cam Ward's day at camp. And instead it was this. And I truly was appalled, and I'm on his side. 615-737-1025. Add that to the list. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company. It's 1025, 1063 The Game.
It's very crucial. Like I said, that's one of the reasons why, I had no question. It wasn't no question for me not to be here for mandatory minicamp. Like I said, it was the voluntary stuff that I wasn't here for. But, just be around the guys, to be able to, I know it's not that much time, but being around the guys, spend time with them out of the building, being able to spend that quality time, not just on the field, but off the field. Just try to build more relationships, like since I haven't been here, but it's very crucial. And not just off the field, but when we on the field, just to try to get a connection with Cody, all these new guys that's on defense side of the ball. So, it's going to be big on the field and in the locker room and outside the building.
There you go. That was Jeffrey Simmons after saying that it wasn't crucial, or he didn't say it wasn't crucial for him not to be there for OTAs, but after skipping for a couple months, says the 3 days, absolutely crucial. Let's get to your phones. TD, by the way, has hopped in. TD has something he wants to say. TD, floor's yours.
Yeah, so this whole idea that Paul Kaharski is the only one to ask Jeffrey Simmons about this, and this idea that he was forced to do it, is complete bullcrap, right? So here's the thing, all right? I need you to understand that just because things don't happen in a press conference doesn't mean that it didn't happen, number one. And then number two, it, from what some people understand, is an ongoing legal matter. So why would he comment about that in a press conference? Okay. But as someone who, and I responded to PK's tweet, and I said specifically, I have a different way of doing things, right? And so I just talked to Jeff personally about it. In fact, I've talked to Jeff personally about it multiple times. And when I last talked to him about it yesterday, he said that it was handled. Now, I'll have more details as I continue to gather more information, but everybody is sitting here getting all up in arms about the situation, but they don't know the details. So I get it. It is something that has to be reported. But this whole idea that PK is somehow a victim and was forced to ask because no one else did is nonsense. And you don't even know anything about that situation because you weren't there, but you're sitting here talking about it like you were right in the middle and saw everything. You got to stop talking out of ignorance because you don't have a clue what happened.
But in fairness, I mean, I didn't even know the story existed until yesterday.
No,
but
I told you about the story a month ago. What are you talking about? I told you a month ago about this.
I will say.
Oh, I will say. Okay.
If Paul said to Terry McCormick that, hey, are you going to ask the question? There's no way that either of them would know that you privately talked to Jeff about it. You know what I mean?
They saw me approach him after the scrum.
Right, but that was after the scrum. Paul saying like, hey, when Simmons is talking on the record, Terry, you're going to ask about this. Terry said, according to Paul, Terry said, yes, he would ask about it. And then he didn't ask about it. So Paul felt the need to ask about it. And I do have sympathy for Paul in that regard.
So one person, because one person didn't ask the question he wanted them to ask, he was forced to? Like, come on, man. There was a whole thing, a mini camp where the defense dominated today. Like, we're not going to talk about that. Like, I don't understand why. And it just, I'm going to be honest. And again, like, I'm not excusing, I'm explaining. It just seems like there's a personal thing against Jeffrey Simmons from some of you guys. And I don't know why, but I am with everyone in that he needs to be more productive and he needs to be a better player. But like this personal thing that people seem to have against him, like I don't get it.
Well, I feel offended by the way that Simmons basically acts. Like, I find it to be intellectually dishonest and insulting with the way that Simmons will skip all of OTAs and then go and tell everybody that he's the leader of the team, or that Simmons will sit there and tell us how crucial mandatory minicamp for 3 days are to get on the same page after he skipped a month and a half worth of OTAs. Or how Simmons will talk about how, the pass rush, we have to get on the same page. It's about all four guys getting on the same page, and he doesn't show up. Or about how he'll make excuses for why he doesn't get sacks when everybody is saying, including the coach, that he needs to go get more sacks. And then Simmons gets upset about it. Like, that's what I find that to be intellectually dishonest.
Say he needs to get more sacks? You never heard him say that?
No, I've heard him make excuses about why he doesn't get sacks. He just said it yesterday.
He just said it yesterday. But to me, okay, so is Jeffrey Simmons the only one that has missed OTAs like over the last X amount of years?
They had 90 of 91 people present for OTAs 2 weeks ago. Simmons was the one who decided not to show up.
And you know what? I said that he needed to be there. And I said that optically it is bad because he's supposed to be the leader and they're connecting, and that's something that he needs to do. So I'm with you on that. He should have been there, but it's a personal decision. Whatever reason he decided not to.
To me, that's a professional decision to not be there, not a personal.
It's a professional decision to not be there for voluntary OTAs. I mean, was it a professional decision when Derrick Henry, even before the 2K season, was not here for voluntary OTA?
Well, that was during COVID. There wasn't an OTA.
Well, no, there were OTAs.
But Derrick Henry
football existed before COVID, Jared Stillman.
But to that
let's not
point,
act like it didn't.
Derrick Henry was, again, on the franchise tag. I don't even think he had signed it up until that point until training camp. Again, I understand when a guy misses a voluntary OTA because he's got a contract issue or Kirk Cousins, isn't happy with his situation. Like, that is par for the course. But for Simmons to just not show up and claim to be a leader when the coach has said that, hey, this offseason leadership, is very important, development, teamwork, all of that. And for Simmons to be the one guy that says, I'm good, I don't need it, that to me is incredibly telling.
So because of that, you have a personal issue with this man? Like, are you a fan or are you an analyst? Like, which one are you?
Again,
because
I find
you
it
have
to be
separate.
offensive.
You have to separate the emotion because that's
Right.
going to allow you to.
My
be objective.
analysis is the things that come out of his mouth are ridiculous when he says that mandatory minicamp's crucial, but OTAs aren't.
Like I said, it seems very much like you have a personal thing with this man, and I don't know what the man has done to you, but I don't.
He hasn't done anything to me. Again,
well, that's a damn shame. If he hasn't done anything to you, you have this degree of a personal vendetta against him.
What makes it personal?
A lot of it. I mean, you look, your show consistently is built upon somehow trying to take a shot at this man or be overly critical of.
It's not a shot. It's the story right now. That's the story. The story is Jeffrey Simmons has decided he's going to do things his way, and he won't explain why he's doing things his way, which leads to this vacuum of speculation. And I'm telling you, I think the Titans and he are headed for a divorce.
Okay. It remains to be seen. I know that things are good on that side of things, but you never know how a situation could get. But to me, I just felt the need to jump on because of this whole idea that no one was willing, or as you said, had the stones to ask this question. That's false.
But I didn't say nobody had it. I only talked about Terry.
No,
and
you said
TJ
the media group. You said to me, because that's what literally made me get up out of the studio and come in here and say, "Oh, no, we got to fix this."
I went out of my way to make sure I didn't say that the media was soft.
I didn't say you said that. I didn't say because I ain't soft. I didn't say you said that. But what I am saying is I did hear you say that no one had the stones to ask the question, and that's why PK had to, which is wrong.
Again, I'm just going off of what he said.
Well, I'm just going off of what the truth is. I'm just going off of what the truth is.
But how am I supposed to know? How's PK supposed to know what you privately talked to Simmons about?
This, like a lot of other things, you speak out of ignorance, and it ends up being arrogantly ignorant, right? Where it's wrong. There were other people. I spoke to Jeff about it.
But did you speak to him on the record about it?
It's on the record.
And what did he say on the record?
He said that it's been resolved.
Okay. Then we got that. TD, good to see you as always.
Great to be seen.
And we'll have TD's full breakdown of minicamp tomorrow. We will get to your phones next. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number on the program. 615-737-1025. It's Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game.
Jeff coming back in the shape that he did, how beneficial is that going to be for him and for you guys in the way that you play?
Oh, it's going to be beneficial all the way around. First of all, I'm jealous, right? Because when I look at him, I'm like, damn, he looks great right now. So he's inspired me to go get in better shape this offseason. So I might do a little bit of training. But I think that, Jeff is coming back and he's trying to be the best version of himself. He's in great shape right now, and his attitude is unbelievable. We have the mindset around here right now, and especially on defense, and every rep, everything we do, refuse to lose. And he has that mindset. He refuses to lose, and there's no excuse. And that's for all of us as a defense. And so I like where he's at. I like the energy that he brings when he's around here. I like the attention to detail, how demanding he is with the other players. So I think that Jeff's going to take another step. He's going to be the best version of himself. And, we'll line up and people going to have to deal with him.
There you go. That was Denard Wilson. If you wanted some positive Jeffrey Simmons talk, there you go. Again, I people in the text line are saying, this is a whole, in the YouTube chat, it's all back and forth. It's again, the reason that we're talking Jeffrey Simmons is because it is the story. Like, it is the story. And you want to know why it's the story? Do you know why? David Reed, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Do you know why this is the story? The Jeffrey Simmons saga.
Because he made it a story?
He made it a story. He didn't show up to OTAs. That's on him. Again, we all know this. We played the cut from the Raw Room where Darren Bates and Delaney Walker talked about when Mike Vrabel was the coach of the Titans, how Kevin Dodd sat down inside the facility and they kicked his ass out of the meeting room because he didn't show up for OTAs, and Vrabel got rid of him. And they were like, yeah, that's not, it is not, yeah, I know it's voluntary, but it's not voluntary. Simmons made it the story by not showing up. And then Simmons doesn't show up. Simmons shows up for mandatory minicamp, and he has the nerve to sit there and say, oh, yeah, I think it's very critical that I'm here for mandatory minicamp because we got a lot we got to get done. I don't know, maybe do that during OTAs? And if Simmons was in a contract dispute, I get it, but he wasn't. He was not in a contract dispute. When Jamar Chase and T. Higgins don't show up for OTAs because they don't have a contract, I get it. If Jamar Chase and T. Higgins this year with a contract decided to not show up, I'd have a problem with it. Simmons has a contract. So, again, he made it the story. It's not. This is football. This is a team. Simmons made this the story, not me. And again, the one thing that I'm pretty good at is I will bang the crap out of a story. Like, I will, when there's a big story, I am on it. Today, I spent on Mad Dog with 3 hours, and I spent 2 hours and 30 minutes on the NBA and how it sucks. Because for some reason, I could just say the same things over and over again. One texter says, I seldom ever agree with Jared, but today my hat is off to him. We want answers, just like you. We don't want to stick up for the players. We want to know the answers. And Mike continues to say that, again, I don't worry about getting on people's bad side because when I was in Louisville, I felt this giant fork in the road. Again, I went to college there. I worked in the athletic department there. I was drinking buddies, from college with people that were in positions of power there. And I knew, I was like, hey, at some point, like being on the radio, there's going to be a push comes to shove moment. Oh, there's this fork in the road. And there's a guy in the media there in Louisville who is just so homerific. And I'm not going to say his name because I don't want him to get pissed off at me because I'm not in the mood to have him pissed off at me because he didn't do anything wrong. But he was a total homer back in the day. And I remember thinking, like, I'm at a fork in the road and there's two places to go. There's either the side that I can take of where, hey, I can make everybody happy, or there's I can say what I think is true and people are going to be mad about it. And I've just accepted that that's how it's going to be with me. Now, again, I didn't have anything to do with this. This was PK and Terry McCormick and everybody else and whatnot. But I just know, like, I'm not going to be friends with coaches and general managers and players, and I'm okay with that. Like, I don't need to be friends with those people. I need to do my job. That's how I feel. And I'm sure Paul feels the same way. Texter says, if it was just you talking about it, I think it would be a personal thing, but it's not. It's been all day. Most of the conversation has been about Simmons. It is an issue that needs to be talked about. I agree. I mean, again, my thing is when it comes to like what's personal and what's not. Yesterday, Simmons was talking about how it was a personal decision to not show up to OTAs. That's not a personal decision. That's a professional decision. Again, I named my son Jack. By the way, happy 6-month birthday, Jack. Happy first half birthday or whatever. But I named my son Jack. That was a personal decision that was also made by Lindsay, not just me. But that was a personal decision. Today, I chose not to go to Titans minicamp because SiriusXM had asked me to host dog days from 12 to 3 Eastern, 11 to 2 Central, which I will be doing, by the way, tomorrow and Friday. And so I made the professional decision to host the show on Sirius as opposed to being at minicamp. That's the difference between a professional decision and a personal decision. That's all I'm saying. Boy, the text line is just on fire. One texter says, none of this would be an issue if Simmons and A showed up to OTAs and B didn't self-describe himself as a leader of the team. He can describe himself as a leader of the team all he wants without issue if his actions reflect that as a description. Again, I don't ever remember. We had the same discussion about Ryan Tannehill in the Celsius ad. Voluntary workouts, Ryan Tannehill's not there, and he posts a photo on a boat with a Celsius can. And it's like, oh, God, okay, are you the leader or are you out here drinking a couple Celsius? And I remember when Ryan Tannehill was asked about it, he's like, really, my Celsius ad? That's what got people mad? Yes, because you're the quarterback. You're the leader. It's different. Stuff matters. Like, that stuff matters. Lamar says, when the owner is Amy Adams Strunk, I wouldn't show up either. That's the problem. They don't respect her, and she doesn't care about them. I wouldn't say she doesn't care about them. I've said, I've told the story about Amy when Floyd got sick and the way that she treated it, and I firmly believe that that is who her character is, that she does have that heart, and I'm not going to knock that, even if I knock decisions she makes running the football team. Now, I do think there's something there, and I know TD said that things between the Titans and Simmons he doesn't think they're headed for a divorce, and he would know better than I would. But I think Jeffrey Simmons is looking at a team that has fallen apart. For a lot of these guys here, either they're here because the Titans wanted to pay them, and they knew the Titans sucked, but they needed the check or they wanted the check, so they took it. That's probably how Snead feels. That's probably how Dan Moore feels. That's probably how, hey, man, I'm on this crap team because they're paying me to be here. Some of these guys, this is all they know. Levis and Spears and Latham and Sweat and Brownlee, this is all they know. This is not all Simmons knows. Jeffrey Simmons was on this team when it was good, and he was one of the better players when he was on this team when it was good. Think of this like a fraternity. And inside the fraternity, the high-end guys are me and Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown and Mike Vrabel and John Robinson and Danico Autry and Kevin Byard and Jonnu Smith, and all these guys are gone except for Simmons. So this team sucks, and Simmons is expected to lead this team, and they downgraded at coach, and they've added in all these other guys. I understand Simmons being frustrated with the direction of the team. I'd be frustrated with the direction of the team if I was on it too, especially if I was used to winning. Give me a break. One texter said, let's be honest, since you don't really talk about anything other than the NFL, if you didn't have this Jeffrey Simmons saga, you wouldn't have anything to talk about. It's going to be a long summer unless you get off the Jeffrey Simmons wagon. So I heard somebody call Robbie and Joe this morning. And I don't know, it's funny to me because growing up, I don't ever remember anybody being like, I want to be a talk show host when I grow up, or I want to be a broadcaster when I grow up. I didn't want to be a broadcaster when I grew up. I didn't know what I wanted to be, but I didn't want to be that. And at the same time, now it's like the broadcasters, and I'm not talking about us in local radio, but I'm talking about bigger picture, have become almost bigger than the games. Stephen A. Smith. Like, he's bigger than the games, bigger than the teams he covers. Skip Bayless was that way for a while. And the reason I say this is because a guy called into Robbie and Retro this morning and was like, I know it's June, as if there's nothing else to talk about, as if Cam Ward's performance isn't worth talking about, as if the NBA Finals. Now, I don't think the NBA Finals are worth talking about, but if I was really scraping for content today, I could talk NBA Finals, because there's enough people here that are watching the NBA Finals. We can talk about we have a lot to talk about. But this is the story. It is a star player who put his middle finger to the team, who doesn't want to talk about it, who is just oozing drama. This isn't I'm looking for something to talk about. This is the story. And if there's anything you've learned, it's that when you're the story, it's a big deal around here. You know what I'm not talking about? What's not a big deal to me? Will Levis is not a big deal to me. And here's why. Because if the Titans trade Will Levis, they're not going to get anything of value in return. It's going to be for a 6th round pick. Big freaking deal. Will Levis is not going to be the starting quarterback of the Tennessee Titans. He is not going to beat out Cam Ward for the job. And if he does beat out Cam Ward for the job, then the story is really about Ward. It's not about Levis. This time last year, Levis was the number 1 guy in town. The difference? He's not the story anymore. I just love when people say things like, oh yeah, you're just looking for something to talk about. No, we got tons of stuff to talk about. This is the story today. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025, here on the Stillman and Company program. Coming up next. So I heard something on the Rich Eisen show, of all places, about Cam Ward and the Titans. And it truly, truly set me off. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. So yesterday I was out of practice, and I watched Cam Ward, and I saw the interception, and I saw the completions, and I saw the ball he threw over Curtis Jacobs' head for Gunnar Helm that hit him right in the hands. It was a beautiful throw over the middle. I watched it, and I was like, yeah, Cam was good, fine. You know, it was a good day. The end. And then Jim Wyatt put out there that he was 20 of 21, and Twitter was, and I thought, oh, God. And it was funny. I was listening this morning because I wanted to hear how Paul would react to it. And Paul was like, I mean, it was fine. Like, it was good. It was solid. I think was the word PK used. Wasn't the end of the world. So this morning I saw on YouTube, this Rich Eisen show, it's incredible because I don't even know where to watch the Rich Eisen show. I hear it's going to be on ESPN Plus, which is not going to be something that I'm going to tune into. Open up the ESPN app, scan the QR code, log in or whatever. I'll do that for a baseball game. I'm not going to do that for Rich Eisen's radio show. I also don't know if it's actually on the radio. But again, Rich Eisen's team deserves a gold star and an A++ for the way that they get those YouTube videos out there, because he's always popping up on YouTube for me. So these little cuts about Rich Eisen talking about the Titans, I find. And so I saw Rich Eisen talks about Cam Ward's reps at minicamp. And I thought when I clicked this, I knew this was going to be Rich Eisen doing one of those Jim Wyatt reports that Cam Ward was 20 of 21 at minicamp. I knew it was going to be that. I was actually surprised that wasn't what this was about. This is about the reps. Brian Callahan's talked about the equal reps, and I don't know how it went today because I wasn't there. But yesterday, Will Levis got the first rep behind the first team offensive line in 11-on-11 team period. The week before, Brandon Allen got the first rep. Cam then went in there second yesterday. Again, Cam's getting the most reps, but everybody's getting some reps. Tim Boyle, I think it's like 1 or 2 reps, whatever. But this is what Rich Eisen said on his show.
Quarterback reps. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Talk about that. Cam Ward. How many reps? How are we splitting? Are we still splitting reps in Tennessee?
What are we doing?
Are we splitting reps in Tennessee? Brian Callahan, are we splitting reps? Cam Ward starting week 1. We all know it. The American people know it. Tennessee Titans fans know it. Can you imagine Will Levis gets that start in Denver?
Oh,
just Cam, we're going to let Cam just sit and watch a little bit.
I believe anything.
Would that be similar to when remember Tom Savage started week 1
for Deshaun Watson?
And then Deshaun came in the second half,
and then started his first game the next week on the NFL Network Thursday Night Football debut. Right? 3 days later in Cincinnati.
And had like a 50-yard run or something.
His tight ends were all hurt.
Yeah.
There was a whole bunch of injuries up front, and he scored his first career touchdown running it in from midfield. Yeah. I'll never forget that.
Yeah. Please don't botch this, Tennessee.
Whoa, now. That last part right there just totally triggered me. Where this producer, and I have no idea who this is, and I'm sure he's famous because I'm sure he's like one of the Danettes or something. He said, please don't botch this, Tennessee. And that triggered me this morning. Again, I thought I was going to watch something that was going to get me riled up because here's Rich Eisen talking about how great Cam Ward was at minicamp yesterday when, again, Cam was good. He was fine. He was solid. He was what you want to say. He was not Mahomes yesterday. Okay, let's chill out for a second. So I was expecting this was going to be yeah, he was so good. And instead, it was hey, what's Brian Callahan doing here? I mean, with Brian Callahan, is he going to put Will Levis out there? I mean, how in the world could they put Will Levis out there week 1? But then again, we saw the Texans do that with Tom Savage and Deshaun Watson. And then that freaking producer goes, please don't screw that. How did he say it at the end? Can we get that very end of the cut there, Reed? How does he say it? Please don't botch this, Titans, or whatever he says at the very end of it. Again, basically being like, please, Titans, don't screw this up by not starting Cam Ward, play the cut, the very end of it.
I'll never forget that.
Yeah, please don't botch this, Tennessee.
Please don't botch this, Tennessee. See, this is why it triggered me. because the please don't botch this Tennessee is exactly how I feel about Cam Ward. And I think Cam Ward's got real talent. I mean, real talent. And I've now seen him throw in person. Because remember, everybody said when you see him throw in person, it's different than when you watch the tape. Well, I've seen him throw in person, and he's got that lightning quick release, and that matters in the NFL. Now, I want to see Cam throw the ball down the field outside the numbers from the pocket. I don't know if he can do it, but again, I'm not saying he can't. So I am of the same mindset. He's got real talent. I watched his tape. He's a first rounder. Now, would I have taken him first overall? You know, the answer is no. And if the reported Giants trade was legit, I would have said, you know, hey, make that trade right then and there. But when it comes to Cam Ward, what I am scared to death of is that the Titans are going to botch this. I am scared to death that the Titans are going to fail Cam Ward. The truth is, with these young quarterbacks that you draft at the top, we don't know if they're going to be any good or not. Mariota was as accomplished of a college player as you could possibly be. The only person who was more accomplished than him was the guy that was taken first, Jameis Winston. And he's a backup. So is Marcus. Vince Young was the national champion. And again, talk about leading your team to victory. That's what he did at Texas. Didn't work out. So, again, we've lived through that. And I look at these quarterbacks, and Mike Borgonzi said it when he was asked at the Senior Bowl about what he took away from the Mahomes experiment in Kansas City, and he said straight up, you have to have a plan. And in Kansas City, we had a plan. And you have to follow through with the plan, because at times in Kansas City, it was hard watching Mahomes in practice and saying, no, keep this guy on the bench. So when it comes to the Titans botching this, what I'm worried about is the Titans putting Cam Ward out there before Cam Ward is ready, or putting Cam Ward out there in a situation where Cam Ward's going to get beaten down. And I use the example of the Denver game because it's going to take more than 1 week for the offensive line to be ready. Denver is one of the loudest and toughest places to play, up there with Seattle in the NFL. You don't have to play Cam Ward right away. You can sit Cam for the first 2 games, play him week 3. If you go through training camp and the preseason games and you realize, you know what, this kid is ready. Like, he is ready today. Stick him out there. Fine. That I'm okay with. But guess what? Josh Allen didn't start week 1 in Buffalo. Nathan Peterman did. He started week 2. Lamar Jackson didn't start week 1 in Baltimore. Joe Flacco did. Lamar started midway through the year. Mahomes didn't start right away. McNair didn't start right away. Aaron Rodgers didn't start right away. Tom Brady didn't start right away. And you want to know what all those guys have in common? Yeah, they're all league MVPs. So when I hear the don't botch this Titans, like when I hear that, I think to myself, oh no. That's what I'm worried about. Is what this guy is clamoring for, what this guy is saying has to happen, that Cam Ward has to play right away. What this guy is saying and saying, oh, don't botch this, Tennessee. What are you talking about? This guy, this Rich Eisen, he's not going to watch the Denver game. Who's watching the Titans Denver week 1? Fans of the Broncos and fans of the Titans. That's it. It's not like, oh, yeah, we've got Monday Night Football. It's the only game in town. Please give us something to watch so we don't have to watch Brandon Allen play quarterback. What's this guy care about? I mean, just give me a break. Give me a break. That's the stuff that scares me, is, again, this idea that because Cam Ward was the number 1 pick of the draft, that Cam Ward has to play right away, even if A, Cam Ward's not ready, or B, the situation is not ready for him to play. That worries me. Your phones, 615-737-1025. TD said that the defense dominated today. That's after everyone got all excited about Cam Ward. And what Brian Callahan said about Cam Ward's performance yesterday. We'll hit that next. 615-737-1025. It's Stillman and Company on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
Ryan, what do you make of the way that Cam shook off the early interception and the way he finished practice off yesterday?
Yeah, great to see. You're going to, quarterbacks throw interceptions. I don't know how many quarterbacks. I'd have to look at it to know for sure, but most guys throw somewhere between 8 and 12 on a really good year. So interceptions happen. How you respond to them and how you bounce back in a game is always really important. It certainly didn't shy him away from throws, which is what you want to see. That they just they kind of get ready and throw it again, and that's a good thing to see and for a young player in his position in practice. So pleased to see that kind of response. Pleased to see his performance afterwards.
There you go. That was Brian Callahan on the way he performed yesterday. Again, I asked Gentry yesterday. I sent him a text, and I said to Gentry, I was like, what happened today at practice? Again, I was on Sirius, from 11 to 2, and they practiced from 11 to 1. And here's what Gentry said. Ward wasn't terrible, but wasn't as good today. Some of that was the setup. They did a lot of third downs where the defense brought blitzes and pressured him into poor throws. Good. No interceptions. That I remember. Bad. He missed some open guys a few times. Ward got most of the quarterback reps, and the other three split the others. Levis had a couple of batted down balls, but he did have a beautiful throw in 2 minute. With Ward, other than 2 minute, where he struggled a bit there, I thought he was still the best quarterback. Defense had a good day, a lot of pressure, a lot of trash talking from Simmons. Think Cam is getting a nice rapport with Ridley. Got behind the defense for a TD ball throw from Ward. And said all the other quarterbacks hesitated to get rid of the ball more than Ward did. Just my opinion, but I really do like that. Gentry also says one more from the notes. Cedric Gray, of all people. Cedric Gray broke through the line to knock out a handoff on a reverse and then recovered the fumble. Mention that because he has been so MIA. So it sounds like Ward was okay, struggled a little bit. Look, that's going to happen. Here's what I worry about, when it comes to the mini camps and everything else. What I worry about is this desire that, we want Cam Ward to be perfect day one. I worry about that. And then when it comes to these guys, I worry about them getting their confidence down because they're not perfect day one. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me is if a guy can't play. And I've been to 2 practices, 1 OTA and 1 mandatory minicamp. I'm going to tell you, Cam Ward can play. Now, does that mean that he'll be a star in the NFL? I can't give you that. But Cam Ward is not where Malik Willis was 2 years ago. To me, that's a big difference. 615-737-1025. I am laughing my rear end off because my favorite part about this is everybody, well, I shouldn't say everybody. There's a bunch of people in the text line that are saying, you're talking too much about Jeffrey Simmons. You're talking too much about that. And I'm like, guys, it's the story. And then people are replying in the text line saying, it's not the story. JC in Goodlettsville says, just because you cry for 2 days about Simmons missing an optional camp doesn't make it a big story. That was your opinion and not necessarily the same for everybody else. What's crazy is, start talking Cam Ward, stop talking Simmons. Not as many phones. Not as many texts, not as many tweets, not as many any of it. I'm telling you guys, I know what the story is. The story is Simmons. Simmons is a star in town. He's not a star nationally, but what is a star nationally compared to a star in town doesn't really matter. This is local radio. Roman Yossi is a star in town. He is not a star across the country. The big story is Simmons. Simmons has decided to go against everything the Titans are trying to preach and their classic sunshiny Brian Callahan way. And then Simmons is going to look at you and say the exact opposite. And I have a problem with that. I think it's bullcrap. And I've said as much. And I think a lot of you out there feel the same way. That's why it's the story. I don't get to make up the story. I am not the Lord when it comes to what's a story and what's not. One texter says, at this point, we're just expecting too much out of Simmons. We know what he is and what he's not. He likes being called the leader, but he doesn't actually like leading. It was great when he was one of the best players, but not when he's the best player. See, this is where I think Jeffrey Simmons' sweet spot is in the NFL, because I still think Jeffrey Simmons is a very, very good player. It would be being on a team where he's not the star. If he were to go to a team that has either a bunch of already really good players or a stud quarterback who takes up all the attention and Simmons just goes out there and plays defense, you'd get the best out of Simmons because Simmons would constantly be complaining, at least internally, which would motivate him, but he would be constantly upset about the fact that not enough people were talking about him. And then he'd go out there and play well, and he wouldn't be expected to sack the quarterback all the time because he's not the highest paid player on the team. If Jeffrey Simmons were to go to the Buffalo Bills, I think Jeffrey Simmons would be a great fit on that team because nobody in Buffalo is expecting Jeffrey Simmons to rule the roost. That belongs to Josh Allen. And it's abundantly clear that it belongs to Josh Allen because when Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs got into it, guess who got sent packing? It wasn't Josh. That's the kind of place he needs to be. And when he was on this team with Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill and Kevin Byard and Mike Vrabel was the coach and everything else, he fit in perfectly. The problem was that when those guys left, Jeffrey Simmons decided, okay, now it's my turn to shine. And I saw it the first day they wore pads last year. When he was talking and he got in a fight, and then there was Callahan had to come out there and go, oh, we're not going to fight anymore. We're going to go. So give me a break. One texter into the text line says, the Jeff Simmons conversation is not personal. When it comes to Simmons, we're talking about what makes him a good player or what makes him a bad player. Again, when it comes to what's personal, for me, I look at it like this, right? There was a player on the Predators years ago, and he was partying way too much. And somebody in the organization came up to me and they said, hey, is so-and-so partying too much? And I knew the guy was. And I said, yeah. So, yeah, he's partying too much. And we never really talked about it on the radio. And I knew the guy was partying a bunch. And then later I asked a buddy of mine that was more in the party circuit than I was. And I said, hey, is this guy ever going to stop partying and focus on hockey? And the guy said, that's none of your business. And I said, actually, it is. Because my business is that team playing well. And if this guy's going out and partying too much and drinking too much and snorting too much and everything else too much, then we got a problem. I mean, that's what I call life of the two-way street. If I were to get arrested, and let's knock on wood and hope that doesn't happen, but if I were to get arrested, it would be front page of the News 2 and Channel 4 and everything else. And whether or not I was guilty, that doesn't matter. What would be the story is arrested. But that's the two-way street of this job. So when you're making $23.5 million and everybody's wondering why you're not playing better, that's not personal. It's the old saying, it's not personal, it's personnel. And the old saying, too, that they say in baseball, which I absolutely love, is don't like it, play better. Don't like it, play better. Don't like the fact that we talk about you not showing up for OTAs? Play better. Win more than 3 games. You don't like it that we keep talking about how you don't get sacks when you get double teamed? Play better. Go get some sacks. It's really not that big of a deal. One texter said, the story should be TD calling you dishonest and hyperbolic on your own show. I don't remember him calling me dishonest. I don't think he did. Now, again, I don't like the, it sounds personal, because it's not personal. Well, wasn't personal with Rand. It was, hey, Rand's got to do a better job. I've been on Callahan's ass, and I'm about to get on Callahan's ass. Again, I've been on Callahan's ass for like the last 3 weeks. Ever since he introduced that corny, remember the Titans, we're all going to get to know each other and love each other thing, I've been on Brian Callahan's ass. Nobody has said to me that that's personal, because it's not. Again, I want Brian Callahan to do well. But the truth is, man, like if you don't start coaching better, if you don't hold people accountable, it's not going to work. So I'm sorry. I know what personal is and not personal. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Speaking of Callahan and his coaching staff, there's one guy in particular that I'm sorry. I can't anymore. Today was the final straw. We'll get to it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 on the 6 through the game.
Brian, we've talked a lot about lessons from last season, how it's affected the offseason approach for the players. How has it affected you as a coach, the lessons you take from last year? How has it affected the staff? Or do you find you're going about this job differently or no?
Yeah, there's definitely some things I go about it differently. I still think I'm pretty true to who I am as far as my interactions with people and players and the staff. But there's a different urgency that goes on here for me, for how I deal with the staff in particular. I think a lot of the things I've learned, I've tried to put into practice. It's one thing to like reflect and say, oh, I could have done this and this better. I've been pretty intentional about doing the things that I think we needed to change. I've sort of attacked those things, and they've been a part of my daily interactions and process. And a lot of it was kind of through this offseason program that we developed. And how do we best win football games, and how do I best put our team in position to do that? How do I coach that better? And how do I do a better job from a leadership perspective for our players and our staff? So there's a lot of things that go into that, but I think I've not strayed too far from who I am and how I interact, but I've also been really focused and intentional about what needed to be better.
There you go. That was Brian Callahan talking about, hey, so what have you learned from last year? And it was a long word salad where he's like, really the accountability as far as the staff is concerned, we've been a little focused on that, blah, 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 whatever. But I have a hard time when it comes to the coaching staff, because I've said this, you can't have the season he had and almost fire nobody. They fired the special teams coach. Again, that was done kicking and screaming. They didn't have a choice. But the defensive coordinator returned, the offensive coordinator returned, pretty much all the position coaches returned. There's a Mike McCoy here, and Justin Outen is no longer there. But for the most part, it's the same staff. And I thought, that's kind of a joke. Like, kind of a joke. Now, Denard Wilson today had a press conference. Coordinators were talking today. And so when Denard Wilson had his press conference, I was listening to it to hear what he had to say about the defense, and I was appalled when it came to Denard Wilson's press conferences. Now, this is something that at the beginning, when they hired Denard Wilson, I thought he had great energy. I was like, hey, that's great energy. I have no idea if he can coach, but there's great energy. He says he values pass rush. It seems to be those are the things I care about. Like this guy, this might work. And last year, the defense was playing well in camp. We didn't know Levis was a complete and total bum. So I figured, hey, defense might be okay. And last year, the defense sucked. And the defense got off on the fact that they were the second-ranked defense in the NFL because Will Levis and the special teams gave up so many yards themselves to allow the other teams not to have to go very far to score. But the Titans' defense was awful. They didn't get off the field in big moments at any point last year. They got run all over by Malik Willis and Josh Jacobs in Green Bay. Indy ran for 355 on them in a game. I mean, the expected points in the Washington game was something like minus 29. I mean, it was awful. Just awful last year. And I thought they should have fired Denard Wilson. And I mean this with no disrespect to Denard Wilson. Now, the rest of this is about to be some disrespect to Denard Wilson because I think, again, the press conference there, I couldn't. But I thought they should have fired Denard Wilson because I thought Brian Callahan needs to, after the first year that was a disaster, needed to hire an experienced defensive coordinator with whom he could just farm that side of the ball off to, and he could say, I'm running the offense, and Wade Phillips is running the defense. I'm running the offense, and Clark Lee is running the defense. Again, you can pay more than most colleges. Jeff Hafley was the head coach at BC. He's now the defensive coordinator of the Green Bay Packers. So I'm running the offense, and this guy's running the defense. And instead, they brought Denard back. So today, Denard Wilson had a press conference. And just listen to how toxically positive Denard Wilson is about things that aren't true. Let's start with Jeffrey Simmons and the weight loss Jeffrey Simmons has achieved, and listen to Denard Wilson. Play the cut.
Jeff, coming back in the shape that he did, how beneficial is that going to be for him and for you guys in the way that you play?
Oh, it's going to be beneficial all the way around. First of all, I'm jealous, right? Because when I look at him, I'm like, damn, he looks great right now. So he's inspired me to go get in better shape this offseason. So I might do a little bit of training. But I think that, Jeff is coming back and he's trying to be the best version of himself. He's in great shape right now, and his attitude is unbelievable. We have the mindset around here right now, and especially on defense, and every rep, everything we do, refuse to lose. And he has that mindset. He refuses to lose, and there's no excuse. And that's for all of us as a defense. And so I like where he's at. I like the energy that he brings when he's around here. I like the attention to detail, how demanding he is with the other players. So I think that Jeff's going to take another step. He's going to be the best version of himself. And, we'll line up and people going to have to deal with him.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Jeffrey Simmons, man, I'll tell you, he's got the best attitude. He showed up yesterday. The entire team showed up for 3 weeks. He didn't, but he's got the best attitude. Boy, I'll tell you, he's looking great. I mean, it makes me, he's so great, I want to lose weight myself. But hey, with him, we refuse to lose. You lost 14 games last year. There are no excuses. All Simmons does is make excuses. He was making excuses earlier about, oh, yeah, when we rush the quarterback, it's all 4 guys. It's not just 1 guy, but we all know they're going to double team me. We all know they're going to game plan me. We all know. Oh, my God. And then he was asked about the Simmons double teams. And we may have to play this cut twice, because when I heard this, I just thought to myself, does this guy think everybody is stupid? Play the cut.
What do you expect of him against double teams? Premier defensive tackles around the league.
Right. Well, look, is this when you get a double team, and if you know how to work, how the 4 guys work up front, it's 4 against 5. When you get the slide, all right, it's always either you work an edge or you work to split them. Because you got to understand this. Sometimes you have to split them and the other guy gets the one-on-one. If you don't split them, now it's a hole where a quarterback can escape. So, like I said, Jeff's going to win, and he has been double teamed and won on double teams, but we have to do a better job up front, rushing together, being 4 against 5, all right, against their front, and then presenting certain packages to make it easier for him to win. Jeff's going to win against anybody. Jeff's a dominant football player. Every team in the National Football League would love to have 98 line up on their defensive line.
Okay. So right there, he just said, when it comes to a double team, you're going to have to win on double teams, and that should help everybody else out. But it's all about the 4 guys working together. And that's the key. Jeff's going to do his thing. It's the other guys that have to do their thing. Okay. First off, number 1, all the best players in the NFL get double teamed. Everybody who's a great player gets double teamed. The difference between you and J.J. Watt, or you and Aaron Donald, or you and Chris Jones is that they beat the double team. The second thing is, again, talking about, well, hey, it's about all 4 rushers. Well, that sounds good, but how many new rushers did you go get this year? If last year it was everybody else except for Simmons' fault, how many guys did you change? You released Harold Landry, and you drafted Femi Oladejo. Again, I know they gave Lorenzo Carter, a couple scraps here and there, but that's not like a big-time addition. So you got rid of Harold Landry, and you drafted Femi Oladejo, and you signed Draymond Jones. So you added 2 guys, you got rid of 1. The rest of the group is going to be Arden Key, Tavondre Sweat, Sebastian Joseph Day, who did get sacks last year, who you did re-sign. So you didn't really change anything, did you? Except for the 1 guy. And am I supposed to sit here and believe, and I really mean this, am I supposed to sit here and believe that Harold Landry wasn't doing what he was supposed to do? Am I supposed to believe that Harold Landry didn't know what to do, that they were sitting there in the meeting saying, Harold, you've got to be able to do this. We need you to do this for us to win. And Harold Landry would go out to the field and do the exact opposite. Am I supposed to really believe that? Because Mike Vrabel was around Harold Landry for his entire career, with the exception of last year. And the second Harold Landry came available, Vrabel did whatever it took to sign him. So I don't believe anything that Denard Wilson says anymore. And so when you're not a good coach, and last year his defense stunk, other than the second in yards, which again was a total product of the terrible special teams and the terrible, and I mean terrible performance by the quarterback. The defense, this team lost twice to Mac Jones. Mac Jones. This team lost twice to. So when you had a bad year last year, and all you do is patronize the players and tell all of us, oh, no, you don't understand. Like we're all stupid, like we're blind and we're listening to the game on the radio. And so when we say what's going on and he tells us what it is, we say, oh, okay, that must be what it is because we don't have eyes. We couldn't see it. To me, you're not a good coach. So when I hear Denard Wilson, I'm thinking this guy is more of a motivator, more of a motivational speaker. Or maybe he should do this, talk radio. Just crack open the mic and just say a bunch of bull crap. Because he gets to the podium on a consistent basis and just says some of the most unbelievable crap every single week. I will never forget last year. In fact, we'll find the cuts and we'll play them on the other side. But we'll find the cuts where he was talking about why Simmons and Arden Key don't sack the quarterback. And it was the most patronizing gook I've ever heard. Just the most patronizing slop ever. Like the gobbledygook just out of his mouth. So how am I supposed to take this guy seriously as a defensive coordinator when his defense was awful? He's telling me that the issue was everybody else except for Simmons, which, again, there's an audience of one for this. That's what Simmons wants to hear, is that it's everybody else's fault and not his. I can't take this guy seriously. He's never been a defensive coordinator. I had a college coach text me when it came to the Titans defense, and he said that he was studying the Ravens-like defenses this offseason. And this college coach said that he looked at the Seahawks with Mike McDaniel, and he looked at the Dolphins with Anthony Weaver, and he looked at the Titans with Denard Wilson, and he said, okay, and he said that the Titans don't do anything like the Ravens. Their scheme is nothing like the Ravens. So the other teams are, not this team. So today, when Denard Wilson got up there and he said those things, and again, those aren't the only ones that he's saying that he was like super positive, like, oh, you can't believe this guy, he's incredible, this is the best. But those are the ones, I heard, and I was like, I can't believe any of this. I can't believe any of it. 615-737-1025. We'll find those cuts and we'll play them, and we'll get to your phones. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game.
we talk about playing like a Titan, all right? And when we say play like a Titan, the T, and I suggest you write it down, the T in Titan means tougher. We will play tougher for longer than our opponent. If you are not a tough guy, you do not belong on this defense. Come on, pay attention, you only got one.
Really intelligent football players. They're tough. They play with an aggressiveness.
Hey, the second letter in there is I. It's for intelligence. How smart are you? How fast can you pick up the system? And how fast you can play? Discipline on 3. 1, 2, 3, discipline. The second T means for together. Great communication. Great communication. Because a team that fails to connect is a team that fails to win. The A means aggressive. We play an aggressive style of football. We defend every blade of grass. And the last thing is, we play nasty.
You want guys that I think this rookie class embodies a lot of.
We play through the echo of the whistle.
Guys that really love playing football.
We impose our will.
They love winning more than anything else.
And we make people feel who we are.
We want a bunch of guys that love to win, and they'll do whatever it takes to put themselves in that position.
Stop walking on my field. That's what it means to play like a Titan.
There you go. That was Denard Wilson on the Little Titans YouTube show. I mean, again, Denard Wilson might be a chief motivator, but I'm looking for some substance when it comes to how are we going to fix the defense this year, coach? How's that going to, instead of just, again, blowing hot air? And I said that we would find the cuts. Again, this is when I started to think, Denard Wilson may think we're all stupid. Reed, what's the date on these cuts? Is it September 27th of last year?
Yeah, September 27th, 2024.
Okay, so let's play the Simmons one first. So Paul asks him why Simmons doesn't get sacks. Here's that exchange.
How do you assess Jeff's play to this point?
I think Jeff's been playing excellent. As you can see, teams don't run the ball up the middle on us. And then, like I said last week, they slide to him a lot. But he's been doing an excellent job. He's controlling and neutralizing the line of scrimmage along with Sweat. And he continues to just be one of our better players.
I'm curious, though, because, you see a lot of players in this league, whether it's Chris Jones, whoever, like, it slides to them, but they still manage to produce.
Well, it's also about us on first and second down, stopping the run and allowing him to get off. And then, we've been playing teams where when we stop the run or we create negative plays on first down, they don't allow us to rush because they screen. They get the ball out quick. And it's just been it's been one of those things right now. But he's working diligently. Everybody else is, and he'll make the plays. It's still a long season. It's early. We're still figuring it out. All right, but we got to figure out fast. And Jeff, I have no worries about Jeff. He's one of our best players, and he'll continue to be one of our best players.
Narrator, they did not figure it out. This is the Arden Key one. This is the one that pissed me off the most. This is when I really started to think, like, okay, Denard Wilson is completely full of it. Play the cut.
At least on the stat sheet, it seems like Arden has been a guy that hasn't made a lot of impact. What's been your assessment of him?
I think Arden has done a hell of a job. And when you see him, sometimes it's not the stats, but the way he plays, how violent he plays. I think he's done a great job. It's another thing where once we get hot, he'll get hot. A lot of times he's been right there by the quarterback and the ball has come out. So, we got to do a better job in rushing coverage, staying connected body to body, and make these quarterbacks hesitate so he can get there.
You said once we get hot, he'll get hot. Aren't some of these guys responsible for getting you hot?
Well, they are, and they're doing the best they can. But like I say, in certain situations, the ball's coming out fast, a lot of screens here and there. These guys have been productive over the years, and they're still going to produce.
I mean, again, narrator, they did not produce. This is why I have a hard time taking Denard Wilson seriously. And again, I want to read the tweet, or I want to read the text. Text. The text I got from a college coach who studied the Titans, when it came to breaking it down. And he said, a colleague suggests that I watch the Titans. They look nothing like the Ravens. I'm not talking personnel. I'm talking X's and O's. I acknowledge that sometimes you have to tailor things, but the style of play is far from the Ravens. Just surprised is all. Simmons, and he actually says Simmons looks like he got a little heavy, not as dominant. Nothing special at all. I feel like I've seen 10 different combinations in the secondary. And by the way, if you've been out there at minicamp, there's a whole bunch of who out in the secondary, like the first team secondary. There's Jarvis Brownlee, there's Roger McCreary, and then there's who? Because, L'Jarius Sneed, he can't ever be bothered to practice. And they still tell us how great he's doing every time. I asked Callahan yesterday, I was like, can you rely on Sneed? And he's like, well, he's done it in this league before. I was like, okay. One texter says, good Lord, this team is so cooked. Perfect coach for this team, Denard Wilson, with consistent excuses. One texter does say, well, what would you say, Jared? Like, what would you say, Jared, if they're asking you about these questions and they're, at some point, it's okay to say something negative. I'm not saying get up there and say, Simmons thinks he's all that in a bag of chips and he's not even a bag of Ruffles. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is it's okay that when L'Jarius Sneed is involved, allegedly, in a car lot shooting during the season, to voice at least, a hint of displeasure with that. They can't do it. When it comes to Jeffrey Simmons affecting the quarterback, it's okay to say, hey, we as a team, this isn't just about Jeff, but we as a team have got to get to the quarterback. We got to help out our offense. The way you do that is to get to the quarterback. You got to create turnovers, and we simply have not done a good enough job, and it starts with me. It's easy to say that. Instead, it was Arden will heat up soon enough, and when Arden heats up, we'll heat up. Or no, when we heat up, Arden will heat up. And Paul's sitting there saying, wait a minute, hold on. Isn't he responsible for you to heat up? It reminds me of the one time that Craig Aukerman got out there and was talking about Kyle Phillips and how he couldn't catch punts. And when you're being compared to Craig Aukerman that you sound like a bozo. And Craig Aukerman was like, it's just all mental with Kyle because physically there's nothing wrong. And Paul followed back and said, okay, but physically he's not catching the ball. And I laughed out loud in that press conference. Josh says, hey, what's wrong with Ruffles? I'm sorry. Ruffles suck. Like the Ruffles with the orange Ruffles, those are good. But just your plain yellow Ruffles, they stink. David, read your thoughts on the Ruffles.
Sour cream and cheddar are what you're referring to, and yes, they're awesome. Plain Ruffles.
What about the regular yellow ones?
Plain potato chips in general, just bad. There's no use for them.
I just, there was this one discussion that came up. I was listening to a show and they have a segment, the 5 questions. It's one segment they do 5 questions that have nothing to do about sports. I actually enjoy it, which would probably surprise you. But one of the questions was like to rank the original chips, like the original Lay's multi-pack, which is Lay's, barbecue Lay's, Cheetos, Fritos, red Doritos, and blue Doritos. And I was shocked by how many people are like, oh yeah, Fritos have to be at the top. Fritos stink. Fritos stink. Regular Lay's stink. I'm trying to think here.
The other one's show out of Texas? Because if you're in Texas, I can see why you're
no. It was the Boston show I like.
I didn't even know they sold Fritos in Boston.
Again, it's the Lay's multi-pack. I'm sorry, I am not interested in a yellow bag of chips. The Lay's, I'm not interested in the regular Lay's. It depends on the mood. I think I would prefer barbecue the best. But if you had to, I'm telling you right now, the blue Doritos, those are legit. And Jeffrey Simmons thinks he's a blue Dorito, and he is not. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. Jared versus Joe is next. Stillman & Company, 125 the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios, and presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. 5 o'clock on a Wednesday. Caroline Fenton is here. Caroline, the owner of the single worst college football take I heard all last week, until I heard Chris Childer say that the SEC had lost their power. That took the cake. Caroline, your favor of the 4-4-2-2 playoff model had to drop down to number 2. I'm sorry.
It's funny because it's not even a take. It's not a very strong one, at least. It's just like, hey, here are a couple of models that have been proposed, and this is the one that I think is best.
As I said to you then, and I will say to you now, you are the only person who is not on Tony Petitti's payroll, the Big Ten commissioner.
Rick Neuheisel agrees with me, and no offense or disrespect to you, between you and Rick Neuheisel, as far as college football takes are concerned, I will be okay with being in the same headspace as Rick Neuheisel rather than yourself.
Rick Neuheisel went to what school?
UCLA.
And what conference?
They're in the Big Ten.
And Rick Neuheisel's on what channel?
Well, he's on Sirius XM College, but he's also on CBS.
Which carries what conference?
Do you think that CBS is paying Rick Neuheisel to say that the 4-4-2 model is the best one?
I'm just saying, I think Tony
think that
Petitti's got a direct line to Rick Neuheisel.
Paid per mention for 4-4-2.
I'm just going to say.
You know what? Maybe I should be paid per mention for 4-4-2. I'm trying to buy a house.
You should. You're the one that went toe-to-toe with an athletic director about 4-4-2 over the weekend.
I did not go
and
toe
of course,
to toe. I asked him about it, and he disagreed with me.
They
You know what?
laughed.
Maybe you are on the Louisville athletic director's payroll. You keep pointing the finger at me. Whoever smelt it, dealt it. Maybe you're really the one spreading propaganda.
or
here.
maybe I'm on the SEC's payroll or the Big 12's payroll or Notre Dame's payroll because they all feel the same way too.
Well,
so just keep that in mind. Joe Rexroad is with us. Joe Rexroad and I disagree about many things, but we do not disagree about the 4-4-2-2 model and how it is not a good college football model. Joseph, how are you?
That's true. I'm Team Jared right here. I have to
Thank
admit
you. And with that, it's time for Jared versus Joe.
SEC Bobos.
First off, Caroline, before you go, Joe, do you think that Rick Neuheisel, and I love Rick Neuheisel, I think he's great. Would you say that he counts, because he works for CBS, as on Tony Petitti's payroll?
No, not really. I think Rick Neuheisel has his own opinions.
Okay.
He can have bad ones.
He's someone that I think is above the forming opinions simply to appease the man.
I don't know, man. Have you ever watched an SEC championship game on CBS whenever the SEC is trying to get two teams in? And Gary and Brad Nessler, this was back in the day, would just.
All right. Well, Gary and Brad Nessler, I think, are different.
And those are good men right there. But Caroline, with that, you're up.
Jared, you go first this week. There's been a whole lot of talk about Jeffrey Simmons for a lot of reasons, which, of course, we can get into. How solid of ground do you think the relationship between Jeffrey Simmons and the Titans is?
I believe it is not on solid ground at all. Now, I believe the way the coaches feel about Simmons and the way the organization feels about Simmons may not be the same. Now, I don't have anything to back that off of. I just think the coaches know, like, if we don't get the best out of Simmons right away, we're all going to get fired. And I don't think the front office feels that way. That said, I think the Titans are upset with Simmons because they pay Simmons $23.5 million, and Simmons does not sack the quarterback, and they made Simmons out to be the leader of the team, and he doesn't do a very good job of that, and he's constantly saying things that end up with his foot inside of his mouth, and he didn't show up for OTAs when Callahan is out here preaching how important the offseason program is, and so on and so forth. And I think Simmons is probably upset with the Titans. This first popped into my head when Chad Withrow said on our show Friday Jeffrey Simmons has probably had a lot of guys in the organization over the last couple of years, whether it's John Robinson, Mike Vrabel, Rand Carthon, Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, Ryan Tannehill, Kevin Byard, Danico Autry, whomever. And now it's just him. And Simmons is sitting there saying, these guys aren't doing enough for me. They're asking me to go out there and win all these football games by myself. I don't have Derrick. I don't have AJ. I don't have Byard. I don't have these guys anymore. And so they're asking this all of me. And they're ungrateful. And I want out of here because AJ got his get out of jail free card. Derrick got his get out of jail free card. Vrabel got his get out of jail free card. And I'd like to have mine. And so I think they'll say all the right things because Simmons has to be smart enough to know that if he starts complaining about the Titans as a team, given the fact that he's overpaid, not underpaid, that's going to cause real problems for him with his next suitor. And I think the Titans would like to recoup fair value for Simmons and eventually move on. So I think they are headed to a divorce.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I don't know if they're headed to a divorce. I don't know if that's feasible. I don't know if there's a way, anytime soon to do that and recoup enough value. But I would agree that it's not a great situation. And I think you touched on, Jared, something that we talked about on our show today, and I don't think the point is made enough. Look, Jeffrey Simmons, there are a lot of fair criticisms of him, and we both think he should have been at voluntary stuff, and he is not an ideal leader, and he is not anymore a great player. I think you could make the case for him as a great player in 2021, and I don't think you really can since then. He's a very good player. He's still arguably the best player on this team, but that's the point, is Jeffrey Simmons, I think, is a malcontent because he has a right to be, because this team is completely dissolved around him. I mean, it's not his fault that the team has nosedived, that so many bad decisions have been made at the coach, GM, and ownership level. And so I think he's unhappy here because say whatever you want about Jeffrey Simmons. Jeffrey Simmons does care about winning and losing. Jeffrey Simmons brutally hates losing, and that's all he's been doing the last couple of years. So I think, I think both sides have fair criticisms of the other. I don't know that the divorce is coming just because ultimately when it comes down to it, you mentioned the coaches, Jared. That's the thing. If they want to have any chance of being competitive this year, they need him on the field, and they need him at the best possible level he can be at this point.
I also think, too, like Simmons may not like the fact that it's all falling apart around him, and I get that. But the $23.5 million is for you to make things better. Like that's why they pay you that money. And I understand, again, you're not going to win with just a DT. But at the same time, I think Simmons is one of those guys, we've all been around him, who whenever things go well, it's because of me. And whenever things don't go well, it's because of you. And that to me is Jeffrey Simmons. And I think that attitude needs to change. And I don't think it's going to, because I think that's who Simmons is.
Yeah, look, name any all-time. Give me Aaron Donald in his prime. Put him on this roster. You changing the bottom line significantly?
I think that Aaron Donald would still get more than 5.5 sacks and then complain about double teams.
Well, sure. No, he would play better. He'd produce more, but are the Titans winning more if everything else is the exact same and it's just Aaron Donald and Jeffrey Simmons plays? Maybe I'll give him one more win.
I think you win a lot more. I think you win 3 more games if Derrick Henry's on the team. And I don't think Derrick Henry is as valuable as Aaron Donald.
But remember, you're also replacing Jeffrey Simmons with Aaron Donald, okay? So you're still replacing what is arguably the best player with Aaron Donald. Absolutely a way better player. The point being, that position is not saving a bad football team.
I don't think with Aaron Donald on the team, the Titans are going to get absolutely housed by Malik Willis or get run on for 355 yards by the Colts.
Maybe.
But, as far as a divorce is concerned, you just laid out how much money Jeffrey Simmons is making. He gets to live in Nashville, which I understand isn't New York City or Los Angeles, but it's a whole hell of a lot better than a lot of other NFL markets. So
try New York, Jeffrey. See how that goes for you, baby.
I don't see how Jeffrey Simmons would be, scratching and clawing, trying to get his way out of this team. And what are the Titans going to do? Trade him? For what? Anything they get in return, I don't think would be worth the absolute boo-hoo fest that would happen with Titans fans if they traded Jeffrey Simmons.
So this is where you
there
have
be
to
a
determine
divorce that's imminent?
So if you're the Titans, this is where you have to determine how much of a cancer Simmons is.
Is he a
If
cancer
Simmons-
or is he just not a leader?
If Simmons is a cancer at all. Again, I don't know.
I don't think he's a cancer. I don't think he's a cancer.
I
In the
I don't
locker
think
room.
that he
I
is
don't
the
think that at
leader
all.
that the Titans want him to be.
Right.
But that's, I mean, like, partially that's on the Titans too for not putting
But-
enough leaders on this team.
The reason why I say like they have to determine whether or not he's a cancer is because, or how much of a cancer he is because then I think that determines how long you're willing to wait before you try to make a move. I mean, I don't think Simmons is going to be in his prime anymore when this team gets to the level of competition. But that doesn't mean that you can't use him because, again, you want to win, and the way to win, you want Cam Ward to get confidence by winning, and the way to do that is to have the defense force the other team, force your offense to score 20 points instead of 25 points. But at the same time, if Simmons becomes too much, then you just have to take whatever you can get for him. It may involve eating the money on the front end, like in a signing bonus and sending him off. I think Koharski put out last year, they think the value on Simmons would be a second-round pick. If I'm the Titans and Simmons can play his way into a first-round pick, I would deal him. Like, if I can get a first-round pick from a team at the trade deadline, I would deal him, and I wouldn't even think twice about it. And I think that, again, if
I'd be
Simmons is
shocked-
such a cancer,
I'd be
you
shocked
got
out
to
of
get
my
out.
mind if they could come close. If they could get up, there's no way they're getting a first round.
I probably would take a second-round pick today for Simmons.
What?
I think I would take a second-round
On
pick for
this
Simmons.
sorry-ass crap team?
Yes. 'Cause you need
When they're
draft picks.
trying to sell PSLs for a stadium that's opening in a couple of years, and Jeffrey Simmons is really kind of, other than Cam Ward, of course, is really kind of your only recognizable star on this team.
He got 5.5 sacks last year.
I understand that, but this is also a business. I mean, like, Jeffrey Simmons needs to do more. There is no doubt about that. Like, it is, yes, very well documented that he needs to do more. But trading him for a second-round pick right now, what does that do?
Oh, if you could give me a second-round pick today, I think I'd do it.
Why?
Because this team needs more draft choices. And again, they finished in last place with Simmons. They can finish in last place without Simmons. I mean, I don't even think, and I do think there will be some boo-hooing if they trade Simmons, but I think Simmons has
I think there'll
worn
be a
out his
ton of
welcome with a lot of
boo-hooing.
these fans. I don't know, like, Joe, you've been text lining the last couple of, I think there'd be a lot of people that if Simmons got traded would say good riddance.
Well, what percentage of
but-
those people are the kind of people that only go along with what the Titans do? That it's in John Robinson we trust until he gets fired, and then it's good riddance.
I think those are the people that would be most upset about them trading Simmons. But to your point, they like whatever the Titans do, so they would say good riddance then. I don't think there are a lot of Titan fans. I could be totally wrong about this. I don't think there are a lot of Titan fans out there. I think it's the boo-hooers now that are the ones that say, like, oh, Simmons is so good. And to your point, they flip whenever the Titans tell them what's next. I think that the intellectually honest Titans fans, I think, realize that Simmons is a little too big for his britches.
Well, I know Brian Callahan does not like the idea of sending him away for a second round pick and going 3-14 again.
Let me tell you what does not matter to me. How Brian Callahan feels. I mean, Brian Callahan feels that teamwork is going to be the difference between winning and losing, even though Jeffrey Simmons isn't showing up for teamwork. So Brian Callahan's not very high on my list of priorities right now.
On to the
Caroline.
next. Okay, Joe, you go first. Cam Ward went 20 for 21 yesterday at OTAs. How big of a deal is that to you?
Like none. I mean, like, it's better than bad numbers. It's better than, wow, Cam Ward threw 4 picks, or Cam Ward kept sailing passes, but it's, I just can't get excited. I can't get excited about numbers like that in training camp, let alone, on the second day of mini camp. Again, it's better than, like, wow, what's going on with this guy? But to me, it's not any sort of, ooh, wow, look what we have here. I mean, look, he's a talented guy. He went number 1 overall. He better be completing passes at a high clip in practice. And, I know like today the Titans did the Denard Wilson threw the kitchen sink stuff at him and made it tougher on him and all that. And that's all good. It's all good work. And so, you hope that he can hit those gimmies and be accurate. But I just, like to me, that's just what you would expect. The news, it's like, man, dog bites man, man bites dog. Like the news is if he has a terrible day because this, unless it's like one of those days where they really go after him and try to do everything they can to mess him up. I mean, on a typical practice day, you sure hope he has numbers like that.
So I'm a little torn on this one because there's a part of me that says, like, would you want a pat on the back for doing what you're supposed to do? Again, it was first and second down. There were a lot of, throws over the middle and throws into zones and things like that. Now, there was a very nice throw to Gunnar Helm. There was a nice little off-balance throw to Io Manor that I liked. But, again, it was fine. I thought he was fine yesterday. But at the same time, I went out to practice when Malik Willis was trying to quarterback the Tennessee Titans, and so did you two. And Malik Willis looked like he didn't even know what colored jersey his team was wearing. And so Cam's certainly above that. And last year with Will Levis, he threw a ball into the lake. And then the Titans made Jim Wyatt go back and edit his story to say that the ball bounced into the lake. And so
It did bounce.
So when it goes to,
it's still funny.
And not only that, like,
funny. Yeah,
I've never seen a ball go into the lake, like ever. Like,
I didn't even know there was a lake.
Ricocheted, jugs machined into it. I've never seen that. And so, when instead of the guy stinking like Malik stunk and everyone was like, oh no, Jared, you're a hater, or Levis stunk, and it was, oh no, Denard's defense. I mean, at least it's like, well, he didn't stink. So again, like, am I patting him on the back for doing what's expected? He's the number one pick of the draft. Yeah, I expect you not to stink. But at the same time, the last two guys have stunk. So I'm torn on how to answer this one. Like I said, he was fine. He was fine yesterday. I watched it. It was fine. It was good, solid, fine. But, the people that didn't cover the practice were like, Cam lit it up. And that's where I'm like, okay, that's a little over the top. Because that wasn't what it looked like yesterday.
These people that you're calling out.
Bounced in the lake. Wow.
That's kind of
Paul was
impressive
doing
if you think about it.
Paul was doing the calling out today on the morning show about the people that didn't want to ask Jeffrey Simmons the question. That was something.
Good for Paul.
Good for Paul. More Jared versus Joe to continue next. Stillman & Company, 105 the game. Caroline, before you go, I got to read LD from McMinnville's text into the text line.
Let's hear it.
He said, did Buck cover practice? Because today, Buck said Cam's performance was amazing. Let me say this. I asked Buck yesterday during practice. I said, Buck, if somebody asked you, how's Cam Ward look, what would you say? And Buck said to me, well, I'd say he looks like a rookie. Again, I didn't hear what Buck said or didn't say, but it would not surprise me if Buck went from, oh, he looks like a rookie to, oh, he looks amazing. I just want to put that out there.
I'm glad that you did.
Would it surprise you?
Would it surprise me? Yeah. Buck has more integrity than that.
Me. Come on now.
All right. Okay, Jared, house settlement came down Friday night. Schools can directly pay players, so on and so forth. Will the house settlement do more harm or do more help for college football?
I don't really know what the house settlement's actually going to do. And I don't really know this for a bunch of reasons. Number one, I don't know if this NCAA Deloitte clearinghouse is actually constitutional, because I keep thinking in my head. So basically, Johnny Joe, who's not represented by anybody in this house settlement, Johnny Joe and Joe Rexroad's Tire Barn have come into an agreement that they'll give him $200,000 if he plays at Oklahoma State. So now they take that to the clearinghouse, and the clearinghouse says, nope, can't do it. So then they say, oh, okay, well, I won't endorse Joey's Tire Barn, but they still give him the $200,000. How are they going to find out who did what? They could say that the contract was for $2,000 and then pay him $200,000. I mean, we saw college coaches cheat the rules when you couldn't pay the players. We've seen college coaches cheat the rules when you could indirectly pay the players. So I'm sure they'll cheat the rules now, even if you can directly pay the players. I still think the clearinghouse thing is completely unconstitutional. The NCAA can't tell Joe Rexroad's Tire Barn and Johnny Joe what they can and cannot do, right? And then secondly, when it comes to the kind of this cap that's been put on the schools and the teams, you mean to tell me Alabama is going to be okay with paying their football team roughly the same amount that Vanderbilt's paying its football team? I can't imagine that. Texas, A&M, like you're telling me that A&M is going to say, yeah, you know what? We're going to spend the exact same amount of money as everybody else when they've got oil boosters there that are like, I'll give you $5 billion. Like, why would they do that? So I don't understand how the clearinghouse part, which is incredibly important, is constitutional. I expect a lawsuit on that on July 2nd, if not July 1st, and I think that will lose. And then on top of it, I again just don't see the teams. Like, it sounds good, you know, of the, hey, everybody's got $20.5 million, but I can't see these schools not trying to have an advantage. So again, you ask if it does more harm than good. I'm not really sure what it exactly does as far as college athletics is concerned. And I'm not exactly sure if any of this is actually going to work.
I agree with most of that. It's comical. Of course, they're going to skirt the rules. Of course, they're not going to, you know, they all say that they're going to hold each other accountable, but I mean, the fact that we even have conferences, the Western Conference, which is what the Big Ten was originally named, you know, was 100 years ago because Iowa was like using 30-year-olds and kicking the crap out of people in college football. I mean, like all this stuff it all exists because people have been trying to find an edge and win forever, and that'll never stop. So I generally agree it's not going to work. I mean, you can do whatever you want. You can have whatever rules you want, but you're open to lawsuits unless you get antitrust exemption from Congress. And of course, they're still hoping for that life raft, and there's talk and there's rumbling, but I gotta see that to believe it. So to answer your question though, Caroline, will it do more harm or help? I'll go with help, just because this is the next inevitable iteration before we finally get to where, you know, we should have gotten a long time ago. But like, of course, they're going to make it as painful and ridiculous as possible, which is some form of collective bargaining, some form of a formalized employer-employee relationship. Again, to me, you know, it can be a contract labor thing with collective bargaining. That is something that at least lawyers tell me you can do and have and avoid some of the consequences that the college sports leaders say will happen. So I'll say help just because, okay, let's get to this. Let's watch this fail miserably. And then eventually we're going to get to, I think, a place where there's, of course, a cap. You're still going to have a lot more, like you said, Jared, you're going to have these schools with more money. I mean, they're it's like, to me, it's going to be like baseball. It's like you're going to have some rules and some restrictions, but you're still going to have whatever, quote unquote, bigger market teams that are going to outspend other teams. And that doesn't always necessarily lead to winning, by the way, as we've seen in baseball. But I think that's where we're going to be eventually.
This
means
me
that
is
more
not
players
even-
are going to get paid under the table again. We're going back to that.
Well, I
Going back
agree.
to bagmen and McDonald's bags.
Yep.
But you don't even need to
Jeremy
do it
Pruitt,
because
Jeremy Pruitt is just salivating at the opportunity to get back into college football.
You know,
Here's the
Will
thing, though,
Wade
you
was just ahead of his time.
You don't even need to do that because when it comes to the McDonald's bags and the things like that, that's because you're trying to hide the money. In this case, like the NCAA cannot audit a booster's business because they want to. Like the NCAA does not have that type of authority. And so I don't understand. And plus the NCAA, they don't even, I truly, in my opinion, believe about that they're going to really enforce this pretty hard. When's the last time you heard the NCAA get on somebody about going to class?
Yeah, but this isn't the NCAA. Let's clarify. This is the new acronym, the CSC, the College Sports Commission. This is separate from the NCAA, just to be technically correct there.
Yeah, I mean, again, whatever. If this were 2006 and we went from you better not give that athlete that haircut for free to we're paying them $20.5 million, that would be something. This to me feels like there's no real change in the day-to-day other than how directly or indirectly the money is coming from. Caroline, what's next?
And also potentially more lawsuits, which I know is what every college sports fan wants is, more
by the way,
boardrooms and courtrooms in college sports.
I would just like to tell every pearl-clutching pawpaw for 30 years that said things like, we can't pay the players, they're college kids, that'll ruin the game, that have said things along the lines of, those boys, they got a scholarship, that's good enough, that we have now paid the players for like 5 years, and we have not lost college sports. They still exist, and they'll still exist now. Feinbaum's on TV sitting there being like, well, it's all the NCAA is now dead. Paul, you've been watching college sports for the last 3 years?
Well, the NCAA is dead, but that doesn't mean college sports are.
It didn't die today. It died 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
I just look at Omaha. Like if Murray State can get to Omaha over Texas, I think everything's going to be okay. Okay, Joe, you go first. And I have been dying to ask you this question. The NBA Finals ratings stink. They are in the toilet. They are horrific. The worst that the NBA has had in a non-COVID affected season. How good of a product is the NBA?
I love the NBA product. Now, I'm glad you asked me this question because Jared, lied, of course, lied through his teeth and misrepresented what I said.
We played the cut on the air.
Jared, I know you did. And it was like, okay, so you said, Joe said it's a more entertaining product than in the 80s and 90s. And then Chad Wood was like, did he really say that? And then you played this cut in which I not in any way said that. And let me just tell you, and you can ask Robert Stanley if you'd like, because he's been there for every one of these. I've said 10 million times on my show, my favorite thing in the history of sports is late 80s NBA. I will never love anything more than that. There will never be a more entertaining product to me than that. I'm also saying, yes, over 30, 40 years, players get bigger, stronger, faster, more skilled, more nutrition, etc. In every sport we advance, and in the sprinting and the swimming and the football. But everybody seems to think, no, basketball's in a time capsule, and it never could get better than Michael Jordan and Luke Longley. So let's make sure we know what we're talking about here. The product, I love it. I love basketball. I think people who hate the NBA product don't really like basketball. That's my opinion. I think it's a great product, and I'm not surprised by the ratings. because like there's just
You
not
think
a lot
everyone
of
hates
sex appeal.
basketball?
No. Well, I mean, look, I think that, again, if we're going to talk, my favorite thing on our show is when people get on the text line and they start yelling at me about ratings, and they're like, but the Stanley Cup playoffs, that's where it's at. I'm like, okay, well, you're still talking multiple times more people watching the NBA Finals than the Stanley Cup Finals. We know that, right? And again, I love them both. So are we sitting here crying about how bad of a product hockey is because their ratings aren't good? I love the product. I'm not going to let my opinion of a product be dictated by ratings. I'm not surprised the ratings aren't good. There's not a lot of sex appeal with this matchup. The market thing I think has been a little overplayed, but you have smaller markets who care about the teams, and then you don't have, SGA is a fantastic player, but is he a player who moves the needle in this league? No, not compared to a lot of other guys in the league. So, the ratings aren't good. I'm not surprised. I love the product. I think it's a high level of basketball. I think it's great players, great teams, great coaching. I love it. I love basketball. So that's all I really have to say about it. You're welcome to disagree.
So I don't think I need
you're
to.
welcome. And if you're Jared, you're welcome to take those words and mangle and twist them and lie, which is what Jared likes to do.
To his point about Chad, we played the cut with Chad, and then Chad laughed at your take.
Right, but again, but you never demonstrated what you were claiming because I didn't say that. The most entertaining product in sports history to me, let me say again, as I've said a million times, is the late 80s, my beloved Bad Boys against Jordan with Magic, with Bird, with Barkley, Ewing. I'll never love anything more. So again, you just lied about what I said.
Drexler. Now, let me say this. I have had it up to here with the basketball bennies like Joe and Michelle Beadle said the same thing, and other people that are like, if you don't like these finals, then you don't like basketball. Because I'm sorry, I like basketball. I grew up playing basketball. I worked in college in basketball. I was on the radio in the #1 college basketball market in America. I grew up playing NBA Live on the PlayStation before the 2K series even came out. I've watched The Last Dance 1,000 times. So you can't tell me that I don't like basketball. I watched the game on Sunday night. Lindsay and I got home probably midway through the first quarter, and I told her, I said, I'm going to watch basketball, and I don't think you're going to want to watch basketball. So I'm going to go downstairs, and I'm going to watch basketball. So I went downstairs, and I started watching basketball, and I got to tell you, I found myself staring into my phone because I had such little interest in the basketball game that was on in front of me. And then when it got to the third, the end of the third period, the end of the third quarter, I had to turn it off. I had to. I was so bored. I was like, what am I doing here? And so don't blame me. Don't blame me for that.
It was
because I think there were a lot of people out there that were like, yo, this game sucks. Turn it off because it's so boring. And that's how I felt. It felt like watching paint dry on Sunday night.
So let's go back to the golden era when all the games were amazing. There were never any blowouts. It was all 1-point games, and Michael Jordan always hit the winning shot. It's amazing how he wanted to romanticize.
Sometimes he missed them.
There are blowouts in series sometimes, and they're not very fun to watch. I agree.
Yeah, but Michael Jordan blew out the Utah Jazz in Game 4, or no, I want to say it was Game 3 in '98. I think they blew them out.
Every minute. It was so fun to watch Tony Kukoc finger rolls. I know. Let's romanticize the past.
I'll put it to you like this. More than 9 million people watched it. So I think they probably felt the same way.
Okay.
Whereas, Joe is just of the belief that we only remember the good times from the 90s and we don't remember the bad times. I disagree. Caroline, who wins this week?
Did a whole lot of agreeing today. I give Jared the slight edge here for the basketball take. Joe's going to love basketball no matter what. And look, I get it. I feel the same way about baseball. The baseball could be a horrific product and Rob Manfred could make stupid decisions about the league, but I will defend Major League Baseball until my last breath. But I think it's undeniable to say that this NBA product is not very good, and it doesn't feel like the NBA or the league affiliates, cough, cough, ESPN, are really doing much about it to fix it. So Jared,
I actually think ESPN's hurting it. Thank you. Yes, Victor, right over
did
here.
you see that there was no script finals on the court in game 1?
Oh, no. Did you see the CGI finals logo they put up there?
Yeah, it's bad.
Did you see how many ads were on the court during the game?
Yeah, no, Adam Silver is not a good commissioner. I mean, I have no argument to that.
Adam Silver came in and everybody thought he was great because he kicked Donald Sterling out of the NBA. But pretty much every decision after that has been a train wreck. Guys, thank you as always. Jared versus Joe here on the program. And speaking of the NBA, I have spent a lot of time today talking about the NBA. So I do want to get into one thing that absolutely is driving me crazy. And I just hit on it right there. But I find it, I've figured out exactly how I feel about it. We'll do that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game.
They have yet to lose back-to-back games in this playoff run. The NBA Finals are tied at 1 game apiece. Let's go to George Sedano.
Thank you, Mike. Shea, you guys have only lost back-to-back games twice all season. You showed a ton of resilience again tonight. What was different?
Yeah, we just use the opportunity to get better. We've done a really good job of that all year, and last game was no different. Tonight is the same thing. We did some things good tonight. We did some things bad, and we got to be able to get better and get ready for Game 3.
There you go, Game 3 tonight. And I have got to say something that is driving me just batty when it comes to the NBA. And I heard, somebody texted into the text line or a phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Sean says Joe Rexroad's NBA takes are brought to you by ESPN. Let me say this. I believe that ESPN is doing a disservice to the NBA. And the NBA needs to kind of hold ESPN a little more accountable. But I feel like ESPN's really let them down. Because how many advertisements do we have to have on the court? I mean, I'm watching the other day. They got bullied into putting a CGI cursive finals logo on the court after game 1, but we have advertisements everywhere. There's an advertisement in the finals logo for YouTube TV, and that's on the court. Then there's the advertisement for the arena sponsor, which, again, that's fine. I get it. Then there's the advertisement down by each side of the basket that they have superimposed. Then there's the YouTube TV advertisements on each bench. Then there's the board, behind the scorer's table that has an advertisement. Then the baseline has a beer advertisement on it. It's like, how many ads do we need? And then on top of it, we've got the jersey advertisements. They don't have the finals logo anymore. I mean, we got the Indiana Pacers have a QR code on their uniform. And it reminds me, and no finals logo. And it reminds me of when the Nashville Cats, the first iteration of the Nashville Cats existed, when they went to the Arena Bowl with Andy Kelly as the quarterback, and they lost to Jay Gruden and the Orlando Predators. And they had an Amoco, the old gas station, an Amoco logo on the jersey. And I thought this was before basketball and baseball and hockey and all those sports went to the jersey patch. And I thought, wow, they are so poor that they have to put an Amoco patch on their uniform. That's because they're that poor. Well, I know the NBA is not poor because I know how much money ESPN's paying the NBA. I know how much money Comcast, which is NBC, and Amazon are going to be paying the NBA going forward. You don't need a jersey patch. You don't need to cheapen your own product. Put the finals logo back on the floor. And then with ESPN, and I mean this with all due respect to Doris Burke, because Doris Burke is a good broadcaster. And Richard Jefferson, he's kind of relatively new to this. But that is not a number one broadcast crew. And I just think it cheapens the product. It's like when ESPN had Booger McFarland on the sideline in a little Booger mobile, as opposed to getting Joe Buck and Troy Aikman to call the games. It's like when Harold Reynolds and Tom Verducci were calling the game with Joe Buck for the World Series. No, let's go get John Smoltz. So the NBA, again, I will make my prediction on the rating. I think it's going to be bad again. They have yet to crack 9 million for the first time pretty much ever outside of COVID. They have failed to crack 9 million for the first time for the first 2 games. And I'll have my prediction on the ratings next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Am I wrong, Stillman and Company, am I wrong for thinking that the outcome of tonight NBA Finals game nobody really cares about, but the ratings for tonight NBA Finals game people care about? So here's my prediction. Tonight, OKC wins comfortably. I believe OKC will win what will end up being a gentleman's 5-game sweep. And so they'll win comfortably tonight, and they'll put all the pressure on Indiana in a way that'll make that happen. And I'm going to put the final TV rating at 8.24 million people, which would be a drop from game 1 and game 2, which both cracked 8.7 million, but would be the lowest non-2020, so that was the COVID year when it was in October. It would be the lowest non-2020 game 3 of NBA Finals on record. And I think that's what we'll get tonight. And if the basketball is great, maybe that'll make it more entertaining. I will try to watch it tonight, but we shall see what the rating ends up being. Put me down, David Reed, for 8.24 million viewers. And I'm going to ask you, higher or lower?
I'm going to go higher.
Okay. Again, I thought it was going to be the 7s for game 2, so I'll give them credit that it was 8.7 or whatever. That's it for us. Stillman and Company. We'll see everybody tomorrow at 2.